Debris on the roadway going to be west of downtown. It's impacting I-40 westbound right there at mile marker 207. That's going to be just west of the 440-65 split. 40 east and westbound already getting slow. They're on the South Loop downtown. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, and this is The Drive for Wednesday, October 9th. Busy day. We're watching very closely, as you might imagine, developments in Florida. I mean, what a thing. The state of Florida gone through it once already with Helene. And now we're getting ready for Hurricane Milton, which could be a real problem. Let's just go ahead and sort of give you an idea. We're talking Cat 4. It's 120 miles southwest of Tampa, making a bead toward Tampa. Not sure exactly what that final track will look like and where it will land, but it will land sometime late tonight. 130 miles an hour sustained wind. That makes it sort of a lower level Cat 4. It could drop down to a Cat 3. It could stay a Cat 4. But, you know, we always focus on the wind speed. And it's not an insignificant thing, but it's not the wind you got to worry about. It's the water. It's the surge. The winds push the water up against the shore. We're talking here, in some places, they may see a 15-foot surge. 3 feet can knock you off your feet if you're caught in it. 5 feet, you know, you're washing cars away easily. And you go to 10 feet, now you're starting to damage homes in a serious way, especially if they're one-level structures. And then when you get to 15 feet, it's just a mess. I mean, it's a disaster. Remember, the state of Florida is very flat. It is very flat. And a 15-foot surge can do a lot of damage. And Tampa Bay itself, the bay, is actually, quite susceptible to real problems. They haven't had a hurricane coming at Tampa Bay from this particular direction in maybe a century. So it's been a long time. We don't have a lot of modern day experience as to what will happen, but the general sense of it is this could be really a bad storm. Not so much the most powerful storm you ever saw, but just the impact that it brings by pushing water up into Tampa Bay could be very serious. Could go south, and that would help Tampa Bay quite a bit to be on the weak side of the storm instead of the strong side of the storm. Just don't know how that's going to play out. Here is Lieutenant Commander Josh Rennenberg, who flew through the eye of that hurricane earlier today, and he says it's a beast.
This has been probably the worst storm I've ever flown through, and it's kind of hard to watch. I've been seeing some of the footage as it approaches Florida, especially now that that's my home. It's difficult to see after having flown in it. This one was aggressive. It was a tough mission from start to finish today. We took off around 3 a.m. out of Mobile, Alabama, and flew into the storm, and it was just, for every bit of the profile we flew inside that weather was rough, and it was just a grind for us. A lot of the storms we can find some safe space, loiter for a minute, and kind of get our bearings, but this storm was an animal from start to finish. We're inside the eye of the storm. We penetrate the eye of the storm from the side. We're usually at 8,000 feet. And to give you a frame of reference, the top of the storm is 55,000 feet.
Did you hear that? He's flying at 8,000 feet. The storm, the top of the storm is 55,000 feet.
So we're going right through all of it. We go through the wind, the hail, the turbulence, and this one was just a really powerful storm.
Here's Michael Brennan from the National Hurricane Center earlier today in a White House briefing.
We are just hours away from seeing a potentially catastrophic hurricane landfall along the west coast of Florida, with the center of Milton expected to cross the coast late this evening or very early tomorrow morning. Is a powerful major hurricane, and a large hurricane at that. We are already seeing multiple life-threatening hazards playing out across Florida. We have multiple tornado warnings in effect across portions of southern Florida. We're seeing winds increasing, heavy rainfall spreading across much of the state. And conditions are going to rapidly deteriorate over the next few hours, especially where landfall is going to occur along the west coast. That's where we're expecting that devastating storm surge of as much as 10 to 15 feet above ground level from somewhere near the Tampa Bay region southward to Port Charlotte, with significant storm surge extending hundreds of miles even farther south to the Fort Myers and Naples area. And that is why we have been supporting so many evacuation decisions to get people away from that devastating storm surge. Time is running out now for people to leave along the west coast before conditions deteriorate further. Additionally, Milton is going to be a powerful hurricane when it makes landfall and move quickly across the state and remain at hurricane intensity as it moves across Florida tonight and as it enters the western Atlantic during the day tomorrow. So that is going to bring the risk of hurricane conditions to much of the central portion of the state. We have hurricane warnings in effect from Fort Myers up through Tampa to Cedar Key along the west coast, all the way through the I-4 corridor across Orlando to Daytona Beach, up to St. Augustine, including the Cape Canaveral area and the east coast down to Port St. Lucie. So a large area is at risk of seeing devastating wind impacts, widespread power outages, structural damage. And that could lead to a very unsafe environment after the storm, where we tend to see a lot of post-storm fatalities in this very dangerous environment that's left. Additionally, we are expecting very heavy rainfall, 6 to 12 inches, amounts as high as 18 inches across the heavily populated I-4 corridor from Tampa to Orlando to Daytona Beach, which could lead to widespread catastrophic and life-threatening flash flooding and urban flooding tonight and into Thursday in that area. And that's an area where we lost about 16 people in Hurricane Ian to that same type of flooding. So there's a tremendous risk to both life and property there.
What more can you tell us about how the location of this storm is going to affect the storm surge in Florida?
Yes, Mr. President, that just a shift of a few miles in the landfall location will make a big difference in what area sees that very worst storm surge. So a track of the center to the north of Tampa Bay would push the highest storm surge into Tampa Bay itself. A track 5 or 10 or 20 miles south would push that higher storm surge, say, down to the Sarasota, Port Charlotte area. Even as close as we are to landfall, it's not really possible to tell exactly where that worst surge will occur. It's one wobble away from shifting 10 or 20 miles. So that's why we've conveyed that risk across such a large area to help support the evacuation of much of that west central coast of Florida.
But Tampa Bay is particularly vulnerable, correct?
Correct. Yes, Mr. President. It's one of the most vulnerable locations along the entire west coast of Florida because water gets funneled up into the bay. If you were to see a worst case scenario there, you could see storm surge as much as twice as high as they saw during Helene, where it got up to 7 or 8 feet in the bay. It could potentially get up above 10 feet in this event.
So not a storm to be messed with. It is one that be respected. You should always have a respect for these storms. Hurricane Milton, according to the New York Post, expected to be so ferocious, it will cover nearly every beach on Florida's west coast and forever change the Sunshine State's coastline. At least 95% of Florida's west coast beaches are forecast to be inundated and continuously covered by ocean water when the hurricane, predicted to be one of the strongest ever, is expected to make landfall Wednesday, as many still recovering from Helene. This is the most severe level of coastal change, the federal agency warned, saying that Milton's waves and surge could cause erosion and overwash to 100% of Florida's state beaches. Meanwhile, we're real concerned about whether or not FEMA is going to be able to handle this. This story from Fox News, FEMA reports it has under 10% of frontline staff available ahead of Hurricane Milton. FEMA released a daily briefing report on Wednesday revealing the agency had only 8%, or 1,000, 115 FEMA staff members currently available as preparations continue for Hurricane Milton. The number represents a significant drop in availability from a year prior when they showed the agency had 20% of the staff available for deployment. The fear of frontline FEMA staffing comes amid other concerns about FEMA's responses to Hurricane Helene and Milton, including claims that the agency spent its money on housing for migrants and is blocking private relief distribution from entering areas in North Carolina impacted by Helene. We have heard these reports. The government says, "Oh, wait, that's disinformation and that's dangerous." No, I mean, it seems to be real. It's not disinformation. It's criticism. It is people on the ground speaking about what they are experiencing. I haven't just gone on and willy-nilly thrown, stuff on the air. I've been very careful to make sure that what we report is verifiable from somebody who's actually on the ground telling you what they've seen. But here's the interesting thing. In May of 2023, the Government Accountability Office, GAO, published a report that said at the start of fiscal year 2022, FEMA was understaffed by 35%. That might have something to do with why FEMA seems to be so lackadaisical in its response to Helene. They're understaffed by 35%. How does that happen? I mean, that's unbelievable. And again, we are hearing these reports that, that perhaps the aid that is going out there, private relief, is being blocked. Listen to this paragraph in the story from Fox News. Concerns that private relief distributors were being blocked from entering parts of North Carolina that were impacted have circulated. Some of the reports that I've received through some of my contacts who are trying to provide assistance, they're told that they need special requirements for FEMA from FEMA in order to enter these certain areas. FEMA has to sign off on people who would come down with a load of water or a load of food or a load of goods to help these people. They apparently have to go through some kind of vetting process by FEMA before they can go in. I'm here from the government and I'm here to help you, right? I don't understand this. So there we go. It does seem to be some legitimacy to the claims that the White House is calling disinformation. Of course they are, because it's showing that the FEMA is falling horribly, failing to do the job we expect of it. There's one sort of, weird way that you can sort of judge the storm's severity. It's the Waffle House standard. Apparently, Waffle houses are, I've known this for a long time. Waffle houses are prepared and try to get up and running. Each of them has its own generator, and they are well known for, as minutes after the storm clears, they're back in there and back up and running, and it may be the only place you can get a hot meal. So it's called the Waffle House Index, 1,900 locations concentrated in the Southeast and Mid-Atlantic. Help residents of storm-prone states assess whether they're likely to lose power. Waffle House is not known just for breakfast 24/7, 365 a year, but also for its disaster preparedness. For decades, people across the South have noticed that the local Waffle House seemed to be the only business still open during the storm, or the first to reopen after it passed. The chain's reputation for remaining open when people desperately needed a place to warm up, charge devices, grab a hot meal became a fairly reliable, albeit amusing, resource to help track recovery efforts. The company even operates its own storm center, which Georgia Governor Brian Kemp visited Tuesday as he continues to assess damage from Helene and prepare for Milton's impact. If you want to know, you can look it up online. Waffle House has a color-coded map. Green means the location is up and serving a full menu, indicating that the area went through minimal damage in the surrounding area. That means the lights are on and the syrup is flowing. Yellow means that the restaurant is serving a limited menu, a signal that it's using a generator and might have a low food supply. The area might not have running water or electricity, but there's enough gas to fry up bacon for hungry customers. Red means the location is closed, a sign of unsafe operating conditions and severe destruction to the restaurant or to the nearby community. So when you go through, you can just look up the Waffle House Index to see how the particular area you're interested in is faring. If they're up and running, it means that, it maybe wasn't as bad for those folks. If it's down and not reopened after the storm, you can understand that the damage has been perhaps more severe. Listen, I just want to say this before we go to commercial break. If we have anybody from that area that is evacuated, that's now here in Middle Tennessee, who happen to be listening, we would love to hear your story about how you evacuated and what you're going through. The phone line for that is 615-737-9986. That's 615-737-WWTN. Love to hear from you. If you are from this area and you've been in contact with people down in that region, I'd love to hear your story as well. Same number, 737-9986. Right now, 20 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lockboxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
Hear from Floridians holed up in shelters ahead of Hurricane Milton's arrival and a call to action for Tennessee deer hunters. We'll tell you about it at 3:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
That would be the one, the only bearded wonder, Ken Weaver, in our little newsroom closet, bringing you news from around the world, across the nation, up your street, and down your alley.
I mean, it's coming from all over the place,
It's
Brother
coming
Brian.
from everywhere. It's coming from everywhere. And Ken Weaver, nobody does it better than Ken Weaver. I know you will welcome along with me or congratulate along with me Dan Mandis. Dan Mandis, I talked to him earlier today. He is headed to New York City. Yeah, get a rope.
That's right.
He's going to New York City. And he has been nominated for a Marconi Award.
Yes, sir.
And, we don't know if he's going to win or not until we get there. But, I mean, just to be nominated means that you are among one of the best broadcasters in this country.
Top 5.
That's right. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Congratulations to our friend Dan Mandis.
Yes, sir.
So anyway, we also have Jeff Melanoff in the studio. Again, Chris Webber is off. Jeff is in and doing a bang-up job.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
So far, but you're still sort of on probation.
The week's young. The week's young.
Yeah, no, that's right. No, he's doing a great job. We have on the line also right now David from Franklin, who used to live in the Tampa Bay area.
Okay.
David, tell me a little bit about what you remember and how worried you might be about the place you once called home.
Well, it's a pleasure talking to you. I'm a big time fan and listener. I appreciate what you do.
Well, I appreciate you. Yeah.
The neighborhood I grew up in is 15 feet below sea level.
Wow.
And that's in the south part of Tampa, not far from McNeil Air Force Base. So it's going to get wiped out, whatever. But my brother currently lives in Carrollwood, which is not far from Busch Gardens, if you're familiar with Busch Gardens. It's a theme park. And he's going to ride it out. He's going to have a hurricane party. That's just how he is. If you know what hurricane parties are, they just party up until the storm passes through. My parents, they went to West Palm Beach because my sister lives there.
Yeah.
But I've been through several hurricanes. I think the worst one I went through was Andrew. And Andrew didn't make landfall on that side. It just crossed over. And that was rough. So, I mean, my thoughts and prayers are with them people down there, and it's scary.
Yeah,
really
it's bad. It's bad. Well, listen, good luck to your brother. You're right. When you talk about how flat, and in fact, some areas are below sea level. It's like New Orleans is below sea level. And you know what happened in New Orleans when Katrina came along? The bowl of New Orleans filled up with water.
Yep.
It's like a bowl, and it just filled up with water. I'm having flashbacks to that Katrina, because I was on the air at Fox, the day before Katrina came ashore. And I just, I had a little Saturday show. I filled about 2 hours on Saturday and Sunday. And I went and found this hydrologist. I found this report that was done by a hydrologist who said they had already run the computer simulations of what would happen if a hurricane like Katrina came in, and it was not good. Mm-hmm. They expected that there would be many of the dikes that would fail, and the barriers would fail, and that the bowl would fill up. And I mean, they knew exactly what was going to happen, and nobody seemed to be talking about it in those terms at that time. And I got him on the air, and I put him on the phone. I said, "Tell me a little bit about what you expect," and he laid out in great detail exactly what turned out to happen just a day later. And it was like, I felt at that moment people didn't really appreciate the severity of what was about to occur. It's not the size or the strength of the hurricane. It's how much water gets pushed in to certain areas. And wind does damage. There's no doubt about it. Water is what you got to watch out for. That's what kills people. Most often it's the water. People drown. And this one is going to be, if you have a 15-foot surge in some areas, that's above the roof line of one-level houses.
Exactly.
So you the little houses along the beach are just going to be gone. And the water is going to go into this very flat, some areas, as you heard, below sea level, and those areas are just going to fill up. You're talking about a surge of 15 feet, perhaps, and 8 to 12 inches of rain coming down at the same time. And it's flat. Yeah. And there's just nowhere for the water to go under those circumstances. Can't drain out to the ocean.
Nope.
Because the surge is pushing in. So I'm telling you, this one could be really bad. And we hope for the best for the people down there in the Tampa-St. Pete area and across, well, it's going to go all the way across the peninsula and even into Orlando and, out there into the Atlantic Ocean where it will still be a hurricane when it gets there. So this is going to be a rough one. Time for the news now at 30 minutes past the hour.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. We've got the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes, and Milton continues to barrel towards the western Florida coastline. It's a Cat 4 storm expected to make landfall later tonight. Gloria McNair is in a shelter in Tampa and tells ABC News she brought her grandson there, but is worried about the people in her apartment building who decided to stay behind.
I take care of a guy, and I told him that I was leaving, and I asked him, did he want me to call an emergency to pick him up? And he said, no, he was going to stay behind. So I said, well, we got to go. We went on and left.
Now, communities in central and even along the east coast of Florida are experiencing heavy rains and reports of tornadoes. At least 10 tornadoes have touched down across portions of Florida. Here in Tennessee, the call to action is out for deer hunters. The Tennessee Wildlife Federation says Hunters for the Hungry is taking donations of deer and will process them for free to feed Tennessee Hurricane Helene flood victims and the servicemen and women trying to help those victims. You can go to tnwf.org/processors to find a full list of Hunters for the Hungry deer processors if you can help. 5 people are dead after a plane crash in Catalina Island off the coast of Los Angeles. Here's Alex Stone.
It was a twin-engine small plane, a Beechcraft 95. The plane had just taken off from Catalina Island when it crashed in steep terrain. Only about a mile away from the end of the runway, the LA County Sheriff's Department says it was alerted when somebody's phone on board detected the crash automatically and notified 911. Deputies responded to the plane's GPS location and found the 5 on board dead. The FAA and NTSB say they will investigate.
That is the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. All right, that loop around downtown is starting to fill up with everybody trying to get home. It is going to be especially slow going once you are eastbound 40 there, joining with 24 east of town. And then I'm seeing pretty heavy backup going eastbound on 440 once you exit there off of northbound 65. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Say, are your retirement assets structured to minimize taxes? You need to think about this. Could be hard to believe, but many hardworking Americans just like you could be overpaying on taxes in retirement. You can be taxed on your IRA, your 401k, and any other tax-deferred retirement accounts. Beacon Capital Management is here to give you peace of mind. With the threat of massive tax increases possibly around the corner, your nest egg could be in trouble unless you take advantage of defensive tax-saving strategies now. Defend your hard-earned retirement savings by scheduling a free retirement tax reduction analysis today. No cost, no pressure, no obligation. If you've saved more than $250,000 for retirement, don't wait any longer to schedule your free retirement tax reduction analysis from Beacon. Just call this number, 615-488-9303, or visit askbeaconnow.com.
Did you know you're overpaying for your health and wellness products?
With over 20 company-owned brands offering its members vitamins, supplements, wellness, and skincare products, you're able to save up to 70% off retail.
Members Nutrition can't change your life, but we can change the way you live.
It is 38 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair on this. Again, I think it's just a gorgeous day outside. October 9th, it's a Wednesday, and we've got a beautiful 76 degrees. It's so nice outside that the French Bulldog would not come to work with me today. She just felt like it was better to be outside.
Heck yes.
So she's lounging by the pool today.
She's waiting for a rabbit.
Yeah. Well, by the way, just to, her baby, her daughter, Solo, who now lives with another family who just adores her, now came over for a visit yesterday, and there was a lot of French Bulldog madness going on. I mean, it was crazy. Those two dogs just, you ever been around two dogs that just, they're sort of high energy dogs anyway, and they just sort of feed off each other, and they're just basically lunatics. They're just crazy.
Yes.
And those two were running around everywhere. It was quite the sight to watch them. And as soon as Solo went home, Grogu just collapsed and was just went right to sleep. About 4 o'clock, about 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening, she's out solid. So it's good. That little dog has turned out to be a beautiful little French Bulldog, Solo. It's good to see him. Good to see the owner, and good to see Solo for just a short while. Grogu just adores her.
That's her daughter.
That's her daughter. Well, it's a little tense at first. because you have to decide which dog is the alpha.
Well, yeah. They do go through that process.
But once that's done, it was just nothing but fun. Yeah. And Grogu was the alpha.
Of course.
Although her daughter is larger than she is. Yeah, bigger, much bigger. But anyway, it was a lot of fun.
Well, Mama knows best.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. A reminder. Listen of how important it is to vet people when they come to this country. We've got a southern border, as you know, that's wide open, and millions of people, somewhere around, I'm going to say it's around 2 million people now, who have come to this country who were never even vetted at all. That they came across the border and were not interdicted by law enforcement. They crossed the border, they headed north, they just disappeared into the fabric of this nation, were absorbed into communities, and we don't know anything about them. We don't know who they are. We don't know what they're up to. We don't know where they ended up. We don't know anything. It's a big question mark. 2 million people. Now, some of those people are probably just, seeking a better life. They came across illegally nonetheless. But still, you can't have too much anger about somebody just trying to improve their financial situation because, they're trying to, support their families. Okay, that's one thing. But some of those people have bound to come over here with bad intent. And so, that's a problem right now. We've got people in this country roaming around who do not have our best interests at heart, and unfortunately, it's hard to know who they are or where they went. Some people came in here, and even though they were vetted in the proper way, they have turned out to be a problem. Yesterday, big story about someone from Afghanistan by the name of Nasir Ahmad Tawhidi. He was arrested by the Department of Justice. You may have heard this, 27-year-old Afghan national who was brought to the United States as we were withdrawing from Afghanistan. You remember there was a time when they were coming out of Afghanistan with cargo planes, and the brass said, fill the cargo planes up. We'll make sure they get vetted. And they didn't get vetted particularly well, even though the White House assured Americans that Afghans coming to the United States would be vetted, especially given the country is home to ISIS, the Taliban, and al-Qaeda. In September 2021, just days after the last soldier left the country, then Press Secretary Jen Psaki said, quote, no one coming to the U.S. after being evacuated from Afghanistan was unvetted. And yet, Tuesday night, the Department of Justice announced the arrest of 27-year-old Afghan national Nasir Ahmad Tawhidi in Oklahoma City. He is in the U.S. on a special immigrant visa. He had been stockpiling weapons, particularly interested in AK-47s, and planned to slaughter Americans on Election Day. So, the FBI got lucky in finding this guy, and actually it was sort of a sting operation in that one of their informants, met up with him to sell him guns, and he expressed what he wanted to do with them, and then they arrested him. So, they got lucky. The FBI has said time and time again right now that they're very worried about the threat matrix to this country. It's not just, blinking yellow, it's blinking red. And there's so many different concerns that they have, and this is one of them. I mean, the director of the FBI, Christopher Wray, testified before Congress and said that one of the great concerns he has is that somebody might try to carry out an attack like ISIS-K carried out just north of Moscow at this music hall, where two guys go in with AK-47s and lay waste to the place. Try to set it on fire. They said they very much feared that kind of attack, and this is sort of what this guy seemed to be up to, same kind of attack. The Biden administration paroled 77,000 Afghans into the United States after the catastrophic exit from the country. This according to the Defense Department Inspector General, and they were not properly vetted. We found, the Department of the Inspector General said, we found that the Afghan evacuees were not vetted by the National Counterterrorism Center using all DOD data prior to arriving in the United States, the continental U.S. This occurred because Customs and Border Patrol enrollments were compared against the Department of Homeland Security automated biometric identification system, which did not initially include all biometric data located in the DOD. So, you know, they just did a basic scan, but they didn't take into account all of the information that the United States has on bad actors. Again, siloed information. Well, that continues to be a problem. Senate Judiciary Committee ranking member Lindsey Graham, Senator Chuck Grassley have been warning about this for years. The National Counterterrorism Center did not use all the data it should have, leaving dangerous gaps in the screening process. And worse, the administration cannot locate some evacuees. That's great, isn't it? With problematic records who were released into the United States before their background checks were completed. They let them go into the United States before the background checks were completed. These processing problems pose national security and public safety concerns. Former acting director of national intelligence, Richard Grenell, says top U.S. officials have informed him that Biden's vetting process for Afghan nationals is a disaster, noting many do not have documentation, and the administration is telling officials to go with your gut feeling. There's been absolutely zero out of the White House on this. Embarrassing thing. They brought this guy to the United States. They did not properly vet him. He went into America and was preparing on Election Day to kill a lot of people with AK-47s in some place where there are a lot of people have been gathered. Thank goodness. Thank goodness the FBI got onto this guy. But the FBI has to be lucky every time. And the terrorists, the ones who want to do us harm, only have to be lucky once. You no doubt will hear a lot in the coming days about Donald Trump and phone calls to Vladimir Putin after he left office. The Democrats are making a lot of noise about it, trying to suggest that Vladimir Putin is, that Donald Trump is somehow a puppet of Vladimir Putin. The former White House advisor and United Nations ambassador Susan Rice called out former President Trump over a report. Of course, Susan Rice, one of the most political people in America, but she's calling out President Trump over reports that he has spoken with Vladimir Putin at least 7 times since leaving office, suggesting such calls would violate the Logan Act. Well, first of all, Trump says it's not true. I don't think Putin has confirmed it. This is out of a Bob Woodward book, Woodward and Bernstein, that one. And he's claiming that, even though there are people who say it didn't happen, he believes that it did happen. And it's in this book that he's got out right now. And now the Logan Act. At one point, Donald Trump accused John Kerry of violating the Logan Act, said during a White House press briefing in May of 2019, when he was president, he's talking to Iran and has many meetings and many phone calls, and he's telling them what to do. That is a total violation of the Logan Act. Kerry was never charged with breaking the law, and he briefed top State Department officials on his discussions. So, now Democrats are going to make the case. Again, not confirmed, but they're talking as if it is confirmed, and they're saying, it's a violation of the Logan Act. Here's what you need to know about the Logan Act. It is rarely enforced. Only 2 people have ever been charged under it, one in 1803 and the other in 1852. Neither individual was prosecuted. It's hard. I think the reason the Logan Act is weak is it's hard to say that people don't have free speech rights to talk with whomever they want to talk with. But the Logan Act says that if you're out there interfering, there can be conversations that you have between Donald Trump, a former president, and the existing president of Russia that have no interference involved whatsoever. That could happen. But one way or the other, I want you to know at this point, not confirmed. Donald Trump says it's not true, but they're going to make a lot of noise about that. It is, again, I just want to say, in my opinion, sound and fury that accounts to nothing. Sound and fury. It is 50 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock. All right, Eurofix has a very different business philosophy. Did you know that? They staff all of the locations with more staff than the average auto repair shop, so they can be ready when your emergency pops up out of nowhere. Have you ever noticed how hard it can be to get a right-now appointment for vehicle repair? Some dealers, it can be more than 2 weeks out just to get an appointment, but not at Eurofix. Eurofix has been offering quality repairs that beat the dealer without dealer pricing since 1999. Plus, you get a 3-year nationwide warranty and the staff to fix your car now. So if you're tired of waiting forever to get your car into the shop, call Eurofix. Owner Aaron Stokes says we will never be too busy for our customers. We are here to take their pain away now. Eurofix repairs all European cars, and Eurofix says yes to speedy repairs when others cannot or won't. Family owned for 24 years. Call 844-EUROFIX or visit myEurofix.com. That's myEurofix.com.
Hear from Floridians who say they're going to hunker down to try to survive Hurricane Milton. And as for Hurricane Helene victims here in Tennessee, there is a call to action for deer hunters to get involved. We'll tell you about it at 4 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, time to take a look at what's going on in the markets. I think it was a pretty good day today. Everything was up in green. The Dow Jones Industrial up 431 points. S&P was up 40. The NASDAQ was up 108. What's driving all this optimistic action on the markets? Well, let's check in with Ty Draper over at Beacon Capital Management. Good afternoon, Ty.
Yeah, hey, Brian. We had two indexes that closed at all-time highs today as the S&P and Dow inched up about 1%. Those gains came after the Federal Reserve minutes alluded to a substantial majority favoring large rate cuts amount in the future. That news also moved the bond markets as both the 5-year and 10-year hover now in the 4% range. Now, in losing news, Chinese stocks plunged 7% today, almost matching yesterday's bloodbath of negative 9% in the Hang Seng Index. What's coming up for next for the markets? CPI and PPI data reports first thing tomorrow morning.
All right, thank you very much, Ty. And to learn more about what all the folks at Beacon Capital Management can do for you, just go to their website, askbeaconnow.com. Let me tell you, if I could, about the folks over at Busy Bee. You know, it's spooky season. They don't want you to be tricked. Let Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, your Rude Pro partner, treat your family to these specials. They won't ghost you. 50% off furnace inspection, 20% off any furnace repair work at the time of service. It includes a check, test, and start only, additional fee for maintenance, and repair work must be done at the time of inspection. $69 is all it costs to get you a mainline camera inspection from an outside clean out. Find out if your drain pipes are clean, cracked, or clogged. Up to $300 off an ultraviolet home treatment system installation. And remember, the Beehive Club, as a Beehive member, you'll receive 3 annual tune-ups, 1 for cooling, 1 for heating, and 1 for plumbing. 10% off tune-ups, 10% discount on all repairs, priority front-of-the-line service, $100 annual accrued replacement credit with $1,000 max and no overtime or holiday specials. As for as little as $99, you get that Beehive membership in most cases. For satisfaction guaranteed, call Busy Bee HVAC, your Rude Pro partner, 615-775-7833, or visit busybehvac.com.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast and traffic coming up in 5 minutes. Michelle Franzen is covering Hurricane Milton for us.
Whipping winds and rain already impacting Florida's west coast. Milton set to make landfall after 9 tonight near Tampa with record storm surge predicted. Gloria McNair left her senior residence and went to a shelter.
You know, I've been to a lot of hurricanes, but nothing like this. So this is frightening.
President Biden earlier says Florida has the full backing and resources of the federal government.
President Biden said Hurricane Milton is looking like, quote, the storm of the century, and he urged Florida residents in the path to listen to state and local officials.
I urge everyone and Hurricane Milton's path to follow all safety instructions as we head to the next 24 hours.
The president said the federal government has made available an unprecedented number of assets to deal with the impact of Hurricane Helene and now Hurricane Milton.
ABC's Karen Travers. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says Milton will also bring power outages across the state.
Here in Middle Tennessee, Channel 4's Brendan Tierney takes a look at how small businesses are helping Hurricane Milton evacuees.
People evacuating Florida to the Nashville area. This Smyrna event space is opening up as a shelter.
Cots, pillows, and blankets based on donations.
Downtown social owner Victoria Willigas says she wanted to help families that might not be able to afford a hotel. She's preparing to host up to 50 people in the area normally used for wedding receptions and birthday parties.
I mean, they're already losing so much, so it's not about me, it's about what the people are going to have at the end of the day. And I don't have tons of cash that I can give people, but I do have an empty space that I can at least let people stay the night at.
Now, she says anyone needing a place to stay or wanting to volunteer can go to her website. It is downtown-social.com. Right now in Tennessee, deer meat donations are needed to help Hurricane Helene victims. The Tennessee Wildlife Federation says its Hunters for the Hungry is taking donations of deer from hunters, and they'll process them for free. They're going to give the meat to food banks and food trucks that are feeding victims and the servicemen and women helping with recovery there in East Tennessee. So far, 14 deer donations have been processed. That accounts for more than 2,000 servings of protein to communities impacted by the flooding. You can find a full list of Hunters for the Hungry processors at tnwf.org/processors. Election 2024 at a campaign event in Scranton, Pennsylvania this afternoon. Former President Trump.
On day one, I will tell Pennsylvania energy workers to frack, 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 and drill, 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 baby, drill. We're going to frack, frack, frack.
27 days to Election Day, and that's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. All right, the rush to get home is underway, and there are some parts around the loop downtown where you're going to have the usual backups. But now you got something that you don't need going 40 westbound. That is a crash right there at Fessler's Lane. The westbound left lane is blocked, as is the left shoulder. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good afternoon, hour number 2 of The Drive on this 9th day of October. Are you enjoying this amazing weather we're having? I mean, boy, the 4 people down in Florida are already getting it. The outer bands of the hurricane lashing against the coast of Florida. But I've been watching the track, and it's wobbling. It's wobbling, not clear where it's going to go in. May go a little south of Tampa Bay. Hard to know right now. But we'll continue to watch that and bring you more information in the next hour. I want to talk about 2024, and I have our regular 2024 update. I got a ton of stuff to go through here, and I think you're going to like a lot of it. Let's first start with some sound. I love this story. You know, the 60 Minutes interview, I didn't see it originally, but I've seen clips from it, and I'll have to say, I heard Matt Murphy say the same thing, and I agree with him. This guy, Bill Whitaker, did a really good job. He asked some really hard questions, and one of them that it's been sort of replayed today has to do with exactly how she intends to pay for all of these things, all of these great ideas that she has. So, you know, where's the money coming from?
Harris says she'll press Congress to pass a federal ban on price gouging for food and groceries, but details are yet to be defined. You want to expand the child tax credit.
Yes, I do.
You want to give tax breaks to first-time home buyers.
Yes.
And people starting small businesses.
Correct.
But it is estimated by the Nonpartisan Committee for Responsible Federal Budget that your economic plan would add $3 trillion to the federal deficit over the next decade. How are you going to pay for that?
Okay, so the other economists that have reviewed my plan versus my opponent and determined that my economic plan would strengthen America's economy, his would weaken it.
But
my plan, Bill, if you don't mind, my plan is about saying that when you invest in small businesses, you invest in the middle class, and you strengthen America's economy. Small businesses are part of the backbone of America's economy.
But pardon me, Madam Vice President, the question was, how are you going to pay for it?
Isn't that great that he went back and asked the question again? He didn't just let that lie. Great work by Bill Whitaker here.
Well, one of the things is I'm going to make sure that the richest among us who can afford it pay their fair share in taxes.
Oh, that old one. Oh, my gosh. You know, were you with me yesterday when I told you this story? I pulled it back up. In fact, I had to dig it out of the trash can because because it's so perfect for this story. The top 5% of American earners pay more than 65% of the federal income tax. If you are lucky enough to be in the highest 10% of earners, you pay 75% of the taxes. If you're a part of the 25 top earners in America, you're accountable for 89% of all the taxes that are paid in America. The bottom half of earners who make below $46,627 a year pay just 2% of federal personal income tax, according to the report. So, how much do you want the rich to pay when you know the top 25% are already paying 89% of the taxes that are delivered in the United States? And so I hate it when she says, well, we're going to make the rich pay their fair share. They're paying their fair share. They certainly are paying their fair share. A lot more than other people are paying.
It is not right that teachers and nurses and firefighters are paying a higher tax rate than billionaires and the biggest corporations. And I plan on making that fair.
But we're dealing with the real world here.
But the real world includes...
How are you going to get this through Congress?
Good question.
You know, when you talk quietly with a lot of folks in Congress, they know exactly what I'm talking about because their constituents know exactly what I'm talking about. Their constituents are those firefighters and teachers and nurses. Their constituents are middle-class, hardworking folk.
And Congress has shown no inclination to move in your direction.
I disagree with you. There are plenty of leaders in Congress who understand and know that the Trump tax cuts blew up our federal deficit. None of us, and certainly I cannot afford to be myopic in terms of how I think about strengthening America's economy. Let me tell you something. I am a devout public servant, you know that. I am also a capitalist.
Oh, she's a capitalist.
And I know the limitations of government.
I don't think she does. She served in the United States Senate, but she didn't learn anything. Because I'm telling you, Bill Whitaker is right. Congress has shown no inclination to go that direction. And when you talk about major corporations and billionaires take advantage of loopholes, who wrote the loopholes? Congress wrote the tax code. Congress did that. So, I just don't have any patience for somebody who comes out and says, well, the rich have to pay more. The rich are paying quite a bit of taxes. Quite a bit of taxes. Okay. Great interview yesterday by Brett Baer. He's talking to somebody from the Harris campaign, and followed up on this.
There is not a thing that comes to mind. It's time to...
Remember, she said yesterday that she didn't have any idea about what she would change when she became president because, quite frankly, nothing comes to mind. I wouldn't do anything differently than Joe Biden did. That's what she said, which, if she thinks the Biden administration is a shining example of good government, then I think will find a lot of people in disagreement.
There is not a thing that comes to mind. It's time to turn the page.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
Wow, not a thing that comes to mind.
There is not a thing that comes to mind. It's time to turn the page. America is ready to chart a new way forward. And I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
Let's get the latest perspective from the Democratic ticket. Ian Sams is senior advisor to the Harris campaign. Today's soundbite there is getting jumped on, obviously, by the Trump campaign in saying that you can't think of anything that comes to mind that she would do differently. The theory was a new way forward and turning the page. How do you do that if you can't think of one thing?
I think later in that same interview, she said actually specifically that she said, actually, one thing that I would have done differently than President Biden has done is I'm committing to appoint a Republican to my cabinet.
She's going to appoint a Republican to her cabinet. Okay. How much you want to bet that's going to be Liz Cheney? I mean, I'd put down $10 on that bet. I'm telling you. It's just because you are, I don't know, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Mitt Romney, just because they got an R behind their name doesn't mean that they really are conservative. You know that, right? All right. Now, I said I had a lot of ground to cover, and I do. Here we go. Republicans in Pennsylvania and North Carolina registered nearly twice as many voters as Democrats in September. That's right. Republicans registered nearly 61,000 new voters compared to Democrats gaining only 36,000 voters. That is great, great, great news. Pressler, according to Scott Pressler, he's been recently leading an effort to register Amish voters in Pennsylvania, a group of 87,000 people in the state of Pennsylvania, many of whom have never voted before. North Carolina, another battleground state, saw over 19,000 Republicans register to vote in September, nearly double the Democrats' numbers in the state, according to the data. That's right. I mean, those are two battleground states, and the Republicans have been in there getting the work done and getting people registered to vote in areas that are likely to be very, very Republican. The Amish vote in Pennsylvania, 87,000 people, who many of them have never been particularly involved in politics before, are now registered to vote. And they're conservative. Yes, they are. Got an ActiVote poll that I like. I posted this online in my social media pages. But an ActiVote, what they do is they take a daily poll. Now, I don't particularly focus on one poll, but I do like the trend that I'm seeing. And this is important, okay? Over the course of, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 or 11 days now, the trend for Harris has been decidedly down. And the trend for Trump has been decidedly up. He now leads by about 2 points. But the thing that I'm really amazed by is starting on, let's say, the 14th of September, something happened, and Harris started to go down, and Trump started to go up. And it is a definite trend line. And this is the right time for that trend line to kick in. So I like that poll. Dems with data are extremely bullish on Trump winning. Harris may lose 6 swing states, according to political analyst Mark Halperin. This in FoxNews.com. He said this week that both Democrats and Republicans believe former President Trump's chances of winning the election are looking strong after seeing recent private data. In conversations I'm having with Trump people and Democrats with data, they're extremely bullish on Trump's chances in the last 48 hours, extremely bullish. He characterized the Harris campaign as an experiment that's encountering issues. Can you win a short campaign with an untested candidate? And what I'm telling you is happening in private polling is she's got a problem now, he said. He pointed to a recent New York Times poll showing Harris is up over Trump by 3 points nationally. I'm not really worried about that. However, he noted this lead would be on the cusp of the poll's margin of error and that her team would rather be at 4% to be confident that she's winning. Halperin then mentioned a Wall Street Journal report on internal polling done by Senator Tammy Baldwin, a Democrat from Wisconsin, in her re-election campaign, showing that Harris is down by 3 points in Wisconsin. Wow. There's no path out without Wisconsin, he said, bringing the numbers from Baldwin's camp. He said, what this is he says, is this is Baldwin sending up a flare. She's sounding an alarm bell. You sound the alarm bell in the party, and that's what that is, she said. But what I want you to understand is what's actually happening. We're here to tell you that I just saw some new private polling today that's very robust private polling, and she, Harris, is in a lot of trouble. He believes that Harris is in danger of losing every swing state except Nevada. I'm not saying she'll lose all 6, but she's in danger. Trump edges Harris by 2 points in Pennsylvania, according to a new survey. Insider Advantage poll, 49% for Trump, 47% for Harris, and all important, the swingiest of all the swing states, Pennsylvania. Wow. Another story, this one from thehill.com. Democrats start to hit the panic button. Less than a month to go to Election Day, they're increasingly worried about the number of issues plaguing the Democrat nominee's campaign. Not particularly happy with the 60 Minutes interview. Texas demands citizenship data from federal government on 454,000 voters, saying that they don't know if they are citizens or not. That is ongoing. And Senator Bill Hagerty is leading some 60 members of Congress in a letter to the DOJ demanding answers on non-citizens voting. He says it's a problem, and we need to make sure it's not going to happen on Election Day. Let me just finish up with this. Donald Trump has opened up a near double-digit lead on the betting platform Polymarket, his largest since Vice President Kamala Harris joined the race for the White House. The former president's chances of electoral success have boosted in recent weeks. An unspectacular debut appearance in the highest spotlight saw Harris's honeymoon momentum dwindle, with polls increasingly turning toward Trump's favor in recent days. Careful steps into a hostile media environment, again with subpar performances, have certainly not helped the Democrat nominee. So, the people who are gambling on this now believe that there's a better chance that Trump will win the election than there was just a short time ago. The percentage of, they believe, 53% chance Donald Trump will prevail, a 46% chance that Kamala Harris will prevail. It's not an official poll, but interesting nonetheless. 22 past the hour. We have big news from the folks at DT McCall. If you've been thinking about buying a gun safe but putting it off, now is your time. Gun safes are sales tax free. That's right, sales tax free. It's hunting season, so be sure to be keeping your guns safe when you're not in the tree stand with a Liberty gun safe from DT McCall. DT McCall's is the largest Liberty safe dealer in Tennessee. Why is that? Free delivery and setup. Others charge $500 at least for delivery and setup of the bigger models, $300 for the smaller models. DT McCall & Sons delivers every safe free every time, period. Never a setup charge. Security is important these days, and a Liberty gun safe from DT McCall's can be used to protect your valuables, your cash, jewelry, important documents, wills, deeds, car titles, whatever you need to keep safe from theft or fire. So save some big bucks now on your Liberty gun safe when you shop at your local DT McCall's. Just go to dtmccalls.com for locations and information.
Hear from the Floridians hunkering down in shelters ahead of Hurricane Milton's landfall. Tennesseans are stepping up to help. These stories and today's closing money news coming up at 4:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
27 past the hour. Doug Inhofe is the second gentleman. He's the husband of Kamala Harris, and and I pray this doesn't happen, but if she should become president, he would become the first gentleman. By some accounts, not a very nice man. This story from the Washington Times. Former law colleagues of Doug Emhoff, Vice President Kamala Harris's husband, said he was misogynistic and inappropriate toward women, according to a new report from the Daily Mail. Attorneys who worked with Mr. Emhoff at the Los Angeles law firm Venable from 2006 to 2017 say he screamed profanities at women, excluded women from cocktail hours at the office, denied work incentives to women who didn't flirt with him, and brought only young, attractive women from the firm to social events. The second gentleman's former colleague spoke to the Daily Mail on the condition of anonymity for fear of retaliation. The Washington Times reached out to Harris's campaign and her vice presidential office for comment. One senior former staffer said Emhoff bragged about yelling at female porters to get the F out of my office, and later recounted to his senior colleagues that he had put her in her place. A former staffer said she had to ask him something and his door was closed, and confirmed with his secretary that he wasn't on the phone. So she slightly opened the door and stuck her head in, and he said, "Get the F out of my office." What's worse was he bragged about it to management at Venable, and they were aghast. He's an you-know-what. He told them how he put her in her place. A misogynist, that's who does that. Mr. Emhoff was also known for being, quote, very flirty at the office, with one female lawyer who previously worked at the firm recalling how if other women didn't reciprocate in kind, then you were kind of on his list. Those who didn't flirt with him, she said, faced consequences. You couldn't get work on cases you wanted to work on. There were deadlines that if you were one of his favorites people wouldn't apply. If you were, they would. Another female said that the Mr. Emhoff organized men-only cocktail hours in the office. When colleagues brought that to the attention of Venable in 2010, it stopped. The new allegation from the outlet fly in the face of the nice guy supporting his wife, an image the Harris campaign has portrayed as mounting stories from the second gentleman's past continue to build. You'll remember last week the Daily Mail reported an ex-girlfriend of Mr. Emhoff alleged that when the couple was at an event at the Cannes Film Festival over a decade ago, he slapped her because he believed she was flirting with a car valet. Now, they have denied that. But the person who was people who knew the individual who allegedly was slapped say that they heard in real time the accounts from the person who was the victim of that attack. 30 minutes now past the hour.
.30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Milton, currently a Category 4 hurricane, expected to make landfall in Florida later tonight. Gloria McNair is in a shelter in Tampa. She says that she brought her grandson there while her daughter is taking care of other family.
She went to her mother-in-law, so I said, well, you know what? I'm going to do what I think is right. I'm going to follow my mind, and I think I should be here.
Yeah, communities in central and even along the east coast of Florida are experiencing heavy rains, reports of tornadoes. And right now in Tennessee, any evacuee who is needing a place to stay should check out Downtown Social in Smyrna. They can take up to 50 people, they tell Channel 4, and can be contacted online at downtown-social.org. In East Tennessee, deer hunters are being asked to help out victims of Helene. The Tennessee Wildlife Federation says food banks and shelters are in desperate need of meat they can provide to food trucks. They say are ready to cook and serve those families and the servicemen and women helping with recovery efforts. The Federation's Hunters for the Hungry say it will process any harvested deer free of charge so that meat can be given to the needy. You can find a full list of Hunters for the Hungry processors at tnwf.org/processors. Money News, Michelle Franzen.
It's another new record for the S&P, thanks to technology stocks like Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon, up 1% each. The Dow added 432 points. The Nasdaq gained 109. The S&P rose 41 points. Cruise ship companies helped buoy markets. Norwegian Cruise Lines steamed 10% higher after analysts at Citi upgraded its stock and said data suggests growth for the cruise industry into 2025 and beyond. Boeing suffered a slump slump after the plane maker withdrew a contract offer that would have given striking workers 30% raises over 4 years. The Justice Department is considering asking a federal judge to force Google to sell parts of its business in order to eliminate its online search monopoly. Federal Reserve minutes from the September meeting show officials were debating a quarter or half-point rate cut. They went with half.
That is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. All right, we've got the usual slowdowns for the drive home today, but it is especially heavy now. I'm looking at northbound 65 into downtown Nashville. That's right there where you join 40 to go east or westbound. And then also heavy when you exit 65 northbound to go east on 440. That is solid, bumper to bumper, over to the interchange there with 24. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
You know, one thing that really makes Genesis Diamonds stand out from other jewelry stores is the education you get. You know, not clerks behind the counter. They're seasoned pros. They know everything there is to know about diamonds. They will take the time to teach you in a way that is transparent, informative, useful. They'll even teach you how to buy like a dealer buys. They'll show you the inside secrets of the diamond industry. They will show you how diamonds are priced and graded on the world market and how you can maximize your budget. And they will also teach you all about lab-grown diamonds and how you need to be very, very careful with where and how you buy them. This is all done in a relaxed, no pressure, no expectation kind of atmosphere. You know, they know that most guys really don't know a lot about diamonds. So they're committed to teaching you, not selling you. And they know that when you're ready, you can come back and Genesis will give you access to one of the largest selection of GIA-certified diamonds in America. They'll let you see 10, 15, 20 diamonds in your price range side by side so you can make an intelligent decision. I'm telling you, if you're diamond shopping, this is the place to go. It's a no-brainer. The education you want, the selection you need, the price you deserve. Zero risk, zero pressure. Genesis Diamonds voted best jewelry store and best place to buy an engagement ring 10 years in a row. 2 locations, Green Hills and Cool Springs.
Did you know you're overpaying for your health and wellness products?
With over 20 company-owned brands offering its members vitamins, supplements, wellness, and skincare products, you're able to save up to 70% off retail.
Members Nutrition can't change your life, but we can change the way you live.
It is 38 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson. You're listening to The Drive. Are we ready to go there, Jeff? Okay, good. I didn't know for sure. I didn't see you. Pete Hegseth is standing by. Pete, of course, is the weekend one of the weekend hosts of Fox and Friends over at the Fox News channel, and also when he's not there, he's a resident here in Middle Tennessee. And Pete's good to have you on the line again. I saw you in Butler at that amazing rally. So tell me about that. I mean, it must have been quite the experience. I've never seen so many people in one location for a political rally.
It's true. There are Trump rallies, and then there was his return to Butler, and it felt, Brian, a bit like a pilgrimage. I really mean that. I mean, there were a lot of people who were at the original rally in July and were returning to kind of finish what they started. But there were lots of people, California, Texas, Idaho, Missouri, that had made the trek to outside of Pittsburgh and Butler just to be a part of history. It was historic. And it felt like the overwhelming feeling was there's closure needed here. There's a moment we need to stand behind him. And I agree. I've never seen a crowd like it. I mean, we were there for Fox and Friends. It was the morning of. We showed up in the pitch dark. You couldn't see your way to the end of the line. And it was just a sea of humanity. And it was, of course, everyone wants to underplay it and downplay it, and the rest of the media. But there's no one else in this country that could draw that kind of enthusiasm. And they intentionally did it exactly the same. So what you saw in all those images is exactly what it looked like. And I loved it. He got on stage and said, as I was saying, which I thought was a great way to kick it off.
I was predicting that he would either do that or go, before I was so rudely interrupted.
Yes.
It would have been either one. It works great, but it was a great moment. And I mean, a sea of humanity with red hats on. It was really, really quite amazing. But I'm curious, as you were there in sort of middle of Pennsylvania, where I think this whole election could be decided. Clearly not all those people were from that area, but did you get a sense of what's going on in that part of the country?
I got a sense that working class, blue collar Pennsylvania knows exactly who Donald Trump is and who he wants to represent, but they really don't. They've either decided that Kamala Harris doesn't represent them, or they don't know who she is, that she's this sort of empty shell that they're inserting preconceived notions into most of the time in ways that don't connect to them in their everyday lives. The polling we're seeing, Trump is polling a lot better than he did in 2016 in a lot of these states. I mean, in Wisconsin, Brian, if you remember, I think he was over double digits down the few days before Election Day. He ended up winning Wisconsin. I don't think, he's at a nose-to-nose race at this point. So in places like Wisconsin and North Carolina and Pennsylvania, I think he's ahead. And in my mind, that means you've got to really protect the ballot. You got to turn out your voters. You got to get everybody registered. But he's in touch with voters in Pennsylvania in a way, except for Philly and Pittsburgh, that Kamala Harris just can't replicate. And Tim Walz is doing nothing for her. He doesn't help her. He's weirder than she is and probably dumber. And as a result, isn't connecting with any of these people either. And when he does interviews like her, he's not saying anything that people are interested in hearing.
I'm seeing something that's happening. I mean, there's a poll out that says he may be up 2 points in Pennsylvania. There's an active vote poll, which is, I don't look at it day to day, but the trend is up and Kamala Harris's trend is down. In Pennsylvania, there's this little note. I just talked about it with my audience. Republicans registered 61,000 new voters, many of them Amish, who have never voted before, compared to Democrats who have registered 36,000. So more than almost twice as many new voter Republicans, potential Republicans, versus the ones that the Democrats have put together. I mean, there's something going on that makes me feel like maybe we're starting to see that what we call the late break. There's always a bunch of undecided people who break late in the process. I mean, something's going on. Do you sense it, or am I just looking optimistically here?
I think I sense it too, which means we're both hesitant to want to sense it because you don't want to get complacent or or jinx it per se. I just think her honeymoon was so prolonged and so choreographed that she was given a boost that had to deflate given what a terrible, vapid candidate she is. And so now they're panicking because there is this late break. The hangover has kicked in off the buzz, and they're trying to give her more media exposure, except the more people see of Kamala, the less they like, the less clear she is about what she represents. Here's the thing. She's a terrible candidate, Brian.
Yeah.
She would never win a primary. She never did win a primary. She never won a vote that wasn't easily slanted in her favor. She's really bad at this. And so the more
the Democrats
closer, that helps Trump.
The Democrats have a history of nominating people who are not good retail politicians. I mean, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, and now Kamala Harris. None of them are particularly good on the stump, not particularly good in interviews. And, I think people are beginning to see she's sort of an empty pantsuit at this point. That's my take on it. But I also want to talk to you a little bit about what's going on with all of this hurricane relief. North Carolina, East Tennessee, parts of South Carolina, just a little bit, mostly Georgia and Florida, really going through it. And my sense of it is that FEMA is really dropping the ball. When you talk to people, they're not very flattering about the federal response thus far.
No, nor should they be. By the way, Eastern Tennessee hasn't gotten the amount of attention that North Carolina has. There's a lot of devastation there, and I think Tennessee's responded as well as you would want a state to respond. I also think this falls on Biden and Harris. This falls on Harris. This falls on the people in the ruling class. Who do you care about? Where do you invest? What are your priorities? Oh, you're more interested in funding Ukraine and more interested in funding Lebanon than you are in investing in your own people. Oh, you've got one job, federal government, and that's to do, in this case, disaster relief, and you can't do it, and you discourage private citizens from doing it. I mean, this is a layup. I don't understand why Kamala Harris hasn't wrapped her arms around this and decided to make this her campaign calling card for 10 days. You know why? Because she can't. A, she doesn't care, and B, she can't do it. And she can't connect, and she won't, and she doesn't want to roll up her sleeves and do actual work. Ask the people who are in charge of the border. And so the people suffer as a result. They're going to have to do it themselves, and the federal government is exactly what we thought it was, a joke. Carving out its own money to fund the things it really cares about, like illegal immigration, but not people in the hills of North Carolina or in Eastern Tennessee who work for a living, don't ask for much. They just think when a generational flood comes by that someone's going to come by and help them. And it turns out no one's coming. And that's a pretty sad indictment of our ruling class.
Two things on that. Number one, we see what's going on in North Carolina, and the people there are angry. They don't see the federal government. I mean, if you're running for the office of the presidency, North Carolina is an important battleground state. Yes. I mean, you would think that they would do everything they could possibly do to make that situation better for the people on the ground and to show a big federal response, and they're blowing it. Number one. Number two, the other thing that everybody talks about, they get real angry when they say, well, we didn't take any money that was supposed to be from for disaster relief and give it to immigrants. Well, but it doesn't matter. Because most Americans, all they know is, I'm in need, and I see that you got all this money for them, you got all this money for that, you got all this money for other things, including, sending money to Ukraine and Israel and around the world, but there's no money for me when I really need it. That is their reaction. Whether or not it comes out of one account or another, nobody cares. What they sense is that the federal government doesn't care about me. They care about other things more than they care about my plight.
Exactly right, Brian. I think it's part of the previous topic we were talking to as well. Part of the Achilles heel of Democrats is they don't live in the real world. See, if you want to become the Democrat nominee, you got to talk about gender fluidity and climate change, right? I mean, your litmus tests are these abstract, weird, left-wing things, not have you run a state, are you able to deliver, do you want to make a government work for the people? And so when something like this happens, you'd think they would go all in, like Governor DeSantis does so well in Florida. And instead, they're kind of like, it's a thing over there, but I really want to focus on my climate agenda because, it is climate that caused this. So let's pour money into climate. They can't connect with average people because they don't like them. They don't live with them. They don't relate to them. They don't respect them. And they'll cater toward them a little bit, but they really don't represent them. And that's where I think Donald Trump has a Midas touch as a billionaire who understands working class people, and Republicans better learn from him.
Yeah, of course, the news right now is about Milton. What are the plans? Are you going to be going down there or have people down there? I'm sure you'll have a lot of good correspondence.
Sure
Are you thinking about taking the show down there?
We'll see. Possibly, because it's hitting, tomorrow night?
Yeah, hit tonight, I think, actually. Yeah, so.
Yeah. Tonight? Yeah, you're right. It is tonight. Yeah, we're tracking it, and it's just I'm praying for those folks. My goodness.
Yeah, okay. Well, listen, keep us in your mind. I'd love to hear from you if you get down there because we're very interested to know what happens if you go that way or, stay in touch one way or the other. It's always a pleasure, Pete. All right, talk to you later.
Thanks, Brian.
Let's call it 50 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Affordable, convenient, and comprehensive medicine. A basic Smart Care plan starts at $69 a month, which includes free office visits and free basic labs and diagnostic tests. At Grace Point, you are usually seen the same day or the next day. No long wait times are in the waiting room, and Grace Point is your primary provider that treats the entire family from newborns to seniors. When you get to be a certain age, hormones begin to fluctuate, taking a toll on your lifestyle. Grace Point provides comprehensive hormone testing and treatment for both men and women. A military veteran-owned practice located in the heart of Franklin. Call this number, 615-599-6868 to schedule your next medical appointment. Grace Point Healthcare, modern medicine delivered the old-fashioned way.
Hurricane Milton update. Hospitals are feeling the impact of Hurricane Helene, and someone throwing rocks into traffic has killed a driver. Details at 5 on Supertalk 99.7 WTN.
Well, we are watching what's happening in Florida. It's a bad situation down there, not only with the approaching hurricane, but the outer bands of this storm are carrying a lot of tornadoes. There's a tremendous amount of tornadic activity in the state of Florida, even before the hurricane arrives. So we're going to give you the very latest on that. And if you have an iPhone that's at least a 14, 15, or 16 model, I'm going to give you some information that you need to know so you can stay in touch with people in the disaster zones no matter what happens. It's really good stuff. It's all coming up next here on The Drive. 57 minutes now past the hour.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. We've got the full forecast coming up. Also, traffic in 5 minutes. Right now, I can tell you there is a crash reported by police that's blocking the right shoulder. This is 40 westbound near Fessler's Lane. Michelle Franzen has the latest on Hurricane Milton.
The time to evacuate has passed for residents in Tampa Bay and much of Florida's west coast. Hurricane Milton dropping to a Category 3 with winds of 120 miles per hour, but still a dangerous storm, officials say, that will bring catastrophic storm surge and life-threatening conditions. ABC's Jim Ryan is in the hurricane zone.
2 weeks ago today, Hurricane Helene brushed Florida's west coast, bringing dramatic storm surge.
That was 4 to 6 feet, and that was more devastation than I've seen in my life.
Now Tampa Mayor Jane Castor says
Milton is bringing the possibility of bringing twice as much storm surge here.
An 8 to 12-foot surge that threatens to inundate any one-story home in its path.
Florida's governor warning Milton will wreak havoc as it barrels across the state. Tornadoes have already been confirmed today. President Biden says he's deployed federal resources to the region.
Yeah, hospitals are feeling the impact of Hurricane Helene. It damaged a facility in North Carolina, Baxter. That makes 60% of the IV packs in the nation, leaving some hospitals unable to perform surgeries. Channel 4 talked to officials at Vanderbilt who say they're able to treat patients as needed for now thanks to a 2-month supply.
It's going to be a challenge over the next few months to make it through because the options for the FDA are ask the other manufacturers to increase their production, which may or may not be possible. Look internationally at other supply chains and see if those supply chains could be introduced.
Baxter says it is making progress on bringing its North Carolina facility back online. And right now in Tennessee, the call to action is out for deer hunters to help feed Hurricane Helene victims and then rescue and recovery crews there in East Tennessee. The Tennessee Wildlife Federation says it's at no cost to you, the hunter. It says its Hunters for Hungry's processors are prepared to serve this need at no cost. They just need the meat. So they're asking that deer hunters in East Tennessee donate their harvest to H&H Market in Elizabethton, which has already processed and distributed 14 deer donations, accounting for more than 2,000 servings of protein to communities impacted by the flooding. And you can find a full list of Hunters for the Hungry processors at tnwf.org/processors. Over a year ago, a woman was killed in Colorado, allegedly by a group of young men who found it fun to throw rocks at passing cars. Now a similar case has unfolded in the desert town of Southern California, in the desert, that is, of Southern California, north of Los Angeles. Here's Alex Stone.
A woman driver is dead. The California Highway Patrol says after a rock was thrown by somebody through her car's windshield. When officers arrived around midnight on Tuesday, she was dead in her car. No suspect was found. It comes after a similar occurrence in the area on October 6th when somebody threw a rock through a windshield. The CHP is asking for the public's help to find the person who is throwing the rocks in the rural area in the Antelope Valley.
Now, that's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. All right, the usual slowdown around the loop downtown for drivers trying to get home. It is especially backed up northbound 65 to go eastbound on 440, and then that curve on 24 to meet back up with 40 east of downtown is especially backed up. Also seeing it starting to pile up there northbound 65 to Hendersonville and Goodlettsville. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good afternoon, everybody. 6 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair all the way till 7 o'clock tonight, bringing you news and information on this beautiful day here in Middle Tennessee. 74 degrees, abundant sunshine, good day to sort of get out and enjoy the weather. I love these kind of fall days, don't you? I wish that the weather were better for the people in Florida, but it's a nightmare there in the Tampa, St. Pete, Sarasota area. Hurricane Milton now expected to make landfall at about 9 o'clock tonight as a Category 3 storm. Not as powerful as it was, but a dangerous storm. A very, very dangerous storm. They're now talking it's somewhere between, I don't know, you hear different accounts, either a 10-foot surge or maybe a 15-foot surge. And there's an 8 to 12-foot surge, depending on where you are, and 15 to 25 inches of rain. A 12-foot surge and up to 25 inches of rain. This is on top of the fact that they've already had tornadoes across much of the state today. I've seen some of the video. These were big tornadoes that have hit the state of Florida. So this is a big one. And again, though it's not a 5, it's a 3. And everybody, 3. No, let me tell you, 120-mile-an-hour winds right now, sustained. And so I think what you need to understand is it's really not about the wind. I mean, the wind will cause damage, don't get me wrong. It will tear off roofs and do that kind of damage. Trees will be knocked down, power lines will go down, etc. It's the water that kills people. And when you're talking about a surge of 8 to 12 feet, that's an incredibly high surge. Now, I think I'm no meteorologist, but I've done this for a while. I've covered hurricanes and watched a lot of hurricane coverage. So, I mean, you picked up a few things along the way. And what I'll tell you is it looks like it's headed for Sarasota, and that Tampa St. Pete is on the left side of the storm as it comes in. Imagine you're the storm approaching. On the left side, you got Tampa St. Pete. You're about to hit a direct hit on Sarasota. It's the right side of the storm that brings the heavy surge. And on the left side of the storm, sometimes you suck water right out of the bay. There've been some reports sometimes of, the bay having all the water sucked out of it, so that all that you see when you walk out there is mud. Miles and miles of mud because the water's been sucked out of the bay. One way or the other, dramatic things are happening, and this is going to be a bad one because, basically the state of Florida, I think the highest point in the state of Florida is up in the Panhandle, but it's less than 100 feet above sea level. I forget the exact number. I want to say 54 feet above sea level, something like that. The rest of the state's very flat. Some of it's below sea level. And what happens in a situation like that, you got the surge going in against the west side of the peninsula of Florida, the Gulf side. And so the surge pushes water up against it. And then at the same time, you're dropping, I don't know, somewhere between 15 and 25 inches of rain. The rain has no place to go. It's massive amounts of rain. It's no place to go because it can't drain out into the Gulf. It can't drain away because the surge is pushing the water in. It's like a super, 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 super high tide. And so the water that falls on the land can't get out, and the surge is coming in, and that is a really bad combination. That is a truly, truly bad combination. From AccuWeather, tornadoes tear across Florida as Hurricane Milton closes in for a 9 p.m. landfall. Conditions are deteriorating, and the evacuate time is over as Hurricane Milton barrels toward Florida. You do not want to try and survive a 15 to 20-foot storm surge. It's not survivable, says Sarasota Mayor Liz Albert. Over the last several hours, the storm's been moving more to the north than to the east, which is enabling the storm to gain latitude and draw it closer to Tampa Bay. Over the coming hours, the storm can take a turn more toward the east as the storm approaches the coast. The location at which the storm moves to the east is extremely crucial in determining and defining where the worst of the devastating storm surge occurs. As Hurricane Milton approaches Florida's west coast and neighborhoods, they've gone eerily quiet. Many residents faced a difficult decision: evacuate or stay put. Although nearly 7.3 million Floridians are under mandatory evacuation orders across 15 counties, a significant number are opting to remain in their homes. This is it, folks, said Kathy Perkins, Emergency Management Director in Pinellas County. Those of you who were punched during Hurricane Helene, this is going to be a knockout. You need to get out. You need to get out now. A lot of people, though, do decide to stay. You need to help us by evacuating. I've never seen anything of this magnitude. Many residents are choosing to stay. Factors such as gas availability, the cost of inland hotels, and the potential hassle of returning to possibly flooded properties have influenced their decision. I'm telling you, this is one that if I were there, if I was there as a reporter, I wouldn't have any choice. But I would send my family away for sure. This is going to be a mess. This is going to be a mess. So we're continuing to watch that. You want to know what it's like to fly through that hurricane? Earlier today, Commander Josh Rannenberg flew through Hurricane Milton early this morning when it was a Cat 4. And here's what he told Fox News.
This has been probably the worst storm I've ever flown through, and it's kind of hard to watch. I've been seeing some of the footage as it approaches Florida, especially now that that's my home. It's difficult to see after having flown in it. This one was aggressive. It was it was a tough mission from start to finish today. We took off around 3 a.m. out of Mobile, Alabama, and flew into the storm, and it was just, for every bit of the profile we flew inside that weather was rough, and it was just a grind for us. A lot of the storms we can find some safe space, loiter for a minute, and kind of get our bearings, but this storm was an animal from start to finish. We're inside the eye of the storm. We penetrate the eye of the storm from the side. We're usually at 8,000 feet, and to give you a frame of reference, the top of the storm is 55,000 feet. So we're going right through all of it. We go through the wind, the hail, the turbulence, and this one was just a really powerful storm.
All right, so I have some advice for you. If you have relatives that are in that area, there's still time for you to do this. If you have an iPhone 14, 15, or 16, if you don't know which one you have, go to Settings, then General, and About, and the model name, and it'll tell you exactly which model you have. These phones are equipped with an emergency SOS capability that should just work. In other words, if all of the Wi-Fi goes down, if all the cellular towers go out, and you have iOS 18, the latest update, you should be able to send text messages via satellite. I'm not making this up. Most people don't know this. So, you need a 14, a 15, or a 16, and both sides, both the people who are sending the text and the people receiving the text, need to be updated to the latest operating system, which is iOS 18.0.1. And if you look at that and get that all loaded up, no matter what happens when it's all over, you should be able to go outside and text via satellite. Android, sorry, they don't have this technique yet, but the iPhones do. If you're out of cellular range, a pop-up will ask you if you want to use messages via satellite. You need to be outside with a clear view of the sky and the horizon. Clouds won't block the signal, but trees will. The iPhone software guides you where to point your device. And once connected to a satellite, it may prompt you to move left or right or turn around to maintain the connection. You look like a moron when you're doing it, just spinning around on your back porch, but it works. It isn't fast. Apple says in ideal conditions, it might take 30 seconds to send a message. If you're under trees or with light, medium foliage, it might take a minute. When tested on the original iPhone 14 emergency SOS capability, you have to sort of fiddle to find the satellite, stand there until you get a connection, but it will work. Getting responses also hit or miss. But, I have a story here of a guy who had this technology when Helene came through, and he said it worked for him like a charm. Matt Vall Van Swall, leaves 10 miles outside of Asheville. And when Hurricane Helene took out cellular networks, the electricity that powers Wi-Fi connections, he couldn't tell his family he was safe. But once the storm passed, he stepped outside, pointed his iPhone 15 Pro Max at the sky. It said connected. All of a sudden, my phone starts lighting up with these texts from my parents and friends. He's age 30, works for a smart home company. I cried immediately. I was able to get a text out to my parents. Again, iPhone 14, 15, or 16, and both sides, both the people who are sending and the people receiving, need to have their phones updated to the latest operating system, which is iOS 18. It works. And I'm telling you, in a situation where you don't have a phone, you don't have Wi-Fi, you don't have cellular, everything is down, there are no communication systems, even though it's slow and it's clunky and it may take a little while for the messages to go through, it can be a godsend for people who are out there. You know, you want to know, what do you want to know? You want to know, is the person on the other side okay? Is that person that I love in the middle of that hurricane zone, did they survive it? And so I would recommend that you, if you know anything about how updating your system, a lot of people just don't update their phones with the newest operating systems. I'm shocked and amazed by that, but it really is true. You got to get updated. While you still have Wi-Fi, you can still do it. You can get up to speed, and then, you'll be in good shape. Coming after the hurricane, you'll still be able to communicate with the outside world. The satellites are really the thing that you need. It's either something like this, or you got to have a Starlink system. A Starlink system, that will work during times of emergency because they bring the internet down through satellites. Really an amazing system. For the people in the flood zone from Helene, that has been a real godsend for them. Having the Starlink systems, they connect by satellite, and they have it's pretty high-speed internet that goes all the way to the satellite and connects you in pretty quick time. There's not a lot of latency in the system. It really does work. I remember I tested out my Starlink system on the border of Texas, even before they had all the satellites up. I was down on the Mexican border on vacation, and I hooked up my Starlink system, and the connection was good enough that I was in a tent watching a movie on my iPhone because the Wi-Fi connection was fast enough to download the movie. And, I was out in the middle of nowhere, no cell service, nothing. So it worked. The satellites are the way to go if you can get it. But again, best of luck to all the people down there. I know many people have folks that live down there, know people that live down there. This is going to be a rough one. And so, it's going to be, I think when this is all said and done and the storm clears, I think we're going to see a pretty significant amount of damage, sadly. 20 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock. You know that gold has been hovering around all-time highs lately, and silver is up as well, very significantly. Meanwhile, the U.S. dollar has lost 25% of its value since 2020. This government-induced inflation is stealing your wealth, and it doesn't seem that Washington, D.C. has any plans to stop. Gold and other precious metals are a great shield against that inflation theft. During an election year, the politicians will promise you they'll rein in their spending, but you know how that goes. They can't help themselves. This is why, no matter who is in office, gold protects you from the D.C. spending spree. And where do you get that protection? Well, reach out to my friends Kyle and Hannah at Nashville Gold and Coin. They will take great care of you and keep you well informed on all precious metals opportunities. Act now and get your shield against out-of-control government spending. Go to NashvilleGoldandCoin.com and set up your appointment today.
Hear from Floridians holed up in shelters ahead of Hurricane Milton's landfall, and Tennessee's getting nearly $1 million in a settlement over a data breach involving Marriott International Incorporated. We'll tell you about it at 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
That's Ken Weaver in the newsroom, and over there pushing the blinky buttons, it's Jeff Malinoff, and together in just a few minutes after the news, we're going to be doing our Three Amigos. And I got to say, Jeff, you've done a good job so far in participating in this concept we call the Three Amigos.
Yeah, it's been fun. I'm enjoying it. I got another good story coming up.
Yeah, we'll be the judge. No,
fair.
No,
fair.
you've hit them out of the park every single time.
That's way to go, brother Jeff.
Yeah, so we'll do that, in just a short while. And instead of bringing a story, I'm going to geese a bit. Is it okay if I geese a little bit?
You have at it, dude. It's your show.
Well, because I'll geese a little bit and tell you about my best hurricane story. Because I used to go out and cover them.
That's right.
So I've been right in the crosshairs of some of these beasts, and it's an interesting experience. I'll tell you that for sure. So I'll tell that story if you don't mind. Meanwhile, let me just say this: we report when the allegation is made. I want to report this as well. Garth Brooks has filed a lawsuit, according to WTVF, to obtain relief following an accusation of sexual assault and battery by a former hairstylist and makeup artist. Brooks' lawsuit claims that his accuser's ongoing attempted extortion, defamation, false light invasion of privacy, and intentional infliction of emotional distress through outrageous conduct, including the publication and threatened wider publication of false allegations of sexual misconduct that would irreparably harm his reputation, family, career, and livelihood. In the lawsuit, Brooks claims that he was defamed intentionally. When she published a letter on July 17th, he added that the publications were made with malice, ill will, and for the purpose of extorting an unwarranted payment from the plaintiff. He's requesting a trial, along with a declaratory judgment that the allegations are untrue, as well as compensatory and punitive damages. The accuser has not used her name. She goes by Jane Roe in the lawsuit filed in Los Angeles Superior Court last week. In her lawsuit, she stated that she worked for Brooks's wife, Tricia Yearwood, and that started to work for Brooks as well. She said the assault occurred when she traveled from Nashville to Los Angeles with Brooks, who was performing with soul singer Sam Moore at a Grammy Awards tribute to Moore in October of 2019. Brooks forcefully denied the allegations in a statement. And again, one of these things that you don't know. I don't know what happened. You don't know what happened. There are two people who know what happened, and it's going to be decided in a court of law. And as these things usually percolate for a while, maybe a settlement will come, maybe it won't. I don't know. I get the sense that Garth Brooks has his back up about this and is going to fight it all the way. But you know what? In the fullness of time, we'll get some sense of what happened here. I said it the other day, and I'll say it again. I don't know, if the allegation is true or not. I will say this about Garth Brooks, because I have run into people who worked for Garth Brooks, or people who know Garth Brooks, who are associated with him. I've only met him one time. It was just a brief encounter. When I was got a little interview with him one time back in D.C. But it was fine. But I don't know him. But I do know a lot of people who are in his orbit, and they all speak very highly of him. And I keep hearing this story. I can't tell you how many times I've heard this account of the things that Garth Brooks does that, people don't ever know about. Positive, helpful donations to people in need. Just across the board, if people come to him and say, can you help us out? He helps them out. But the only requirement that he attaches to the help is you don't tell anybody about it. Now, to me, that speaks a lot about the character of the man. And again, I don't know the other individual. I don't know what's right or wrong here. But I do think that, that speaks to me of a man who has a good heart. So we'll see, what is going on here in the fullness of time. but he is definitely countersuing very aggressively to defend his reputation. Time for the news at 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7.
.30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Full forecast, traffic updates in 5 minutes. Hurricane Milton barreling towards the western Florida coastline. It's a Cat 4 right now. Expected to make landfall between 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock tonight. Gloria McNair is in a shelter in Tampa and tells ABC News she brought a grandson there, but is worried about the people in her apartment building who decided to try to ride it out. They're staying behind.
I take care of a guy, and I told him that I was leaving, and I asked him, did he want me to call an emergency to pick him up? And he said, no, he was going to stay behind. So I said, well, we got to go. We went on and left.
Communities in central and even along the east coast of Florida are experiencing heavy rains and tornadoes. Now, reports of at least 10 touchdowns since this morning. U.S. Justice Department may be seeking to take Google apart. Here's Stephen Portnoy.
Having won the first round in court with a federal judge ruling that Google is a monopoly, the Justice Department now signals it intends to force a court-ordered breakup of the company, possibly affecting Google's Chrome web browser and its Android operating system. The company responds, saying such a plan could have unintended consequences for consumers, risking their security and privacy, especially if Google is forced by the court to share user search data with competitors.
Now, Tennessee's getting more than $900,000 in a settlement with Marriott International Incorporated over a data breach. The state attorney general's office says in 2016, Marriott had acquired another company, Starwood, and took over the Starwood Computer Company. Well, this settlement, according to News 2, says intruders were in the Starwood system, and they were able to access more than 131 million guest records, exporting guests' personal information without detection, like names, mailing addresses, phone numbers, unexpired payment card information, and birth date information. And affected Tennesseans, according to the state attorney general's office, as part of this settlement, are going to get specific protections going forward, including data deletion, account monitoring, and an option for multi-factor authentication on any Marriott account. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. All right, got a brand new crash to report. This is 440 westbound. It is right there at mile marker 2. Looks like the westbound left lane is blocked, and so is the left shoulder. And then a little bit north of there, we've got a disabled vehicle. It is 40 westbound. Looks like it is blocking the westbound left lane and the left shoulder. This is at mile marker 207. That is going to be on the west loop downtown. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Let me tell you about the Wellness Institute of Nashville. You've been listening. You know who I trust with my back pain, the Wellness Institute of Nashville. If you're having back or knee pain, give them a call today at 615-246-5009 to get the help you need. But they are very excited about the thing happening this week, on the 11th. This is the 9th, so this is on October 11th. Your gates open at 5:30. The show starts at 6:30. It is a concert, a great concert honoring local police officers, firefighters, first responders, and veterans. The Artemis Pyle Band, with founding members of Leonard Skinner, will be playing all their hits. Colin Ray will be performing live a full concert set, revealing a brand new song just for this event. It's a concert you do not want to miss. Members of the 99.7 WTN team will be on site hosting the event. So bring your lawn chairs, blankets, and bring the family to this all-ages event. Get ready to party at the biggest community event Mount Juliet is saying. Again, Charlie Daniels Park, Mount Juliet, the Love Our City concert sponsored by Dr. Kevin Mitchell and Dr. Ashley of the Wellness Institute of Nashville.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
Did you know you're overpaying for your health and wellness products?
With over 20 company-owned brands offering its members vitamins, supplements, wellness, and skincare products, you're able to save up to 70% off retail.
Members Nutrition can't change your life, but we can change the way you live.
Matt Murphy in the middle of downtown Franklin, Tennessee. We've talked so much about Savory Spice. I thought, why not show you the place? So let's go on in and see what's popping at Savory Spice. As I've always said, you will smell the spices even before you walk in. I can smell them right here in the doorway. Come on in and let's introduce you to the one and only Holly, who is the owner and proprietor of Savory Spice. Say hey, Holly.
Hello, everyone.
Now, enough about Holly. Let's talk about spicy and easy products like the incredible taco soup, which, as I said, you put this in a crock pot, you put all the ingredients that it tells you to buy right there, you put the spices in, and it's so easy. So if you don't know what you're doing around the kitchen, it's a perfect way to find your way around the kitchen, as is the Mediterranean dill risotto. Now, for the holidays, pumpkin pie spice. What doesn't it have, Holly?
Pumpkin.
Doesn't have any pumpkin in it. That's a fun fact for all of you kids out there. Now, if you stop by Savory Spice, either in the Franklin location or at L&L Market, you can get yourself a sample of the dill dip, which is my absolute favorite. Just tell them Matt Murphy sent you to Savory Spice with purchase now. So come by Franklin or L&L Market in Nashville and come see Holly and the entire crew at Savory Spice.
Well, there it is. That festive music means it's time for the three amigos who are in the newsroom. The bearded wonder, Ken Weaver. Good afternoon, Ken.
Good afternoon, boys. Yes.
Filling in for Chris Weber is Jeff Malinoff. Good afternoon, Jeff.
Good afternoon, sir.
And I am Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy. Together make up the three amigos, and we're going to do things a little differently today. You guys have brought your stories, but I'm going to geese a little bit. Because I'm watching all of this hurricane coverage, and it reminds me, I started to tell the story the other day, but I only told part of the story. And the rest of the story is pretty amusing. About one of the hurricanes that I had to cover. I was a young reporter in Mobile, Alabama. And you know, we've been watching a hurricane coming into the Gulf all week long. It was coming. And then all of a sudden, it was the weirdest thing. This hurricane took a hard right and started to go away from us. And so they said to everybody, well, everybody's been on standby, but you can stand down. Looks like this hurricane's going to go in to about like where this one's coming in. It's just a little further north, right into the Gulf side of the peninsula of Florida. So, you know, for me, a day off on a Saturday, I would go to the beach. So my wife and I at the time, we put on our bathing suits. We went down to the beach. We're down there at Gulf Shores, right next to the Pink Pony Lounge.
Oh, yeah.
Where you could get good beverages that weren't far away. Everybody gone to Gulf Shores, Alabama knows about the Pink Pony Lounge. Right there, and we're out there on the beach, and all of a sudden the wind starts picking up. And the sand is starting to sting a little bit, and the waves are getting a little rougher. And I'm thinking, wow, this weather, it wasn't supposed to be like this. And all of a sudden, a police car comes down with this megaphone, please evacuate the beach, the hurricane is coming back. Had no idea. It did a complete 180 and came back right for Mobile. Actually ended up hitting Biloxi, but it grazed right past Mobile on the way. A Cat 3. And so I go over. We didn't have cell phones at the time.
No.
So I went over and dropped a quarter in the payphone. And I called the station and said, hey, I hear the hurricane's coming back. Where have you been? We've been looking for you. And they're yelling at me. I said, well, I'm at the beach. He said, stay there. And so they sent me a microwave truck all the way from Mobile down to Gulf Shores and started covering people getting ready for the hurricane, putting up the plyboard and that kind of stuff, and did all that kind of stuff that you do in advance of the story, right? And then they called us on the two-way and they said, we need you to back out of there because they were closing down Gulf Shores. We want you to go to the transmitter. The television transmitter. Now you got to understand, Mobile, Pensacola, the transmitter served both markets, and the transmitter was directly between the two. Studios are in Mobile, but the tower was halfway between Mobile and Pensacola. So I went back to the transmitter, and the idea was if all the lights went out and we lost our ability to send a signal from the studio to the transmitter via microwave, that we would literally plug my camera into the side of the transmitter and carry on live coverage from this cinder block building underneath the tower. And so I'm in this little cinder block building, and the tower, is swaying back and forth. And you hear the wind, the 120-mile-an-hour winds, whizzing through the guy lines that hold the tower in place. I mean, it's very nerve-wracking because I could just see that tower coming down on top of us, and at one point, we did a little report from there just because we wanted to. They were doing wall-to-wall coverage, and they needed to fill some time. So we did a little report from where we were, heavy rain, high winds, etc. When I got through with that, they said, I think we're going to be okay. So if you want to head back down to Gulf Shores from where we were, it's about a 25-mile trip down there. So me and my cameraman, a guy called Smurf, we called him Smurf because he wasn't very tall.
Oh.
Did
he wear blue?
Yeah, no, he didn't, but he's good-natured about it. But anyway, little Smurf and I'm 6'4". Little Smurf, it couldn't be 5 foot tall. And we
makes
took
me
off.
Look tall.
No, we took off down for the beach, and there are trees across the road. We had to go around them. There were power lines down, and it was real. The wind was still going, and it's at least 90 mile an hour winds.
Yeah.
And so we go down. But see, the thing about a microwave truck is you can't run the pole up. They have these poles that go up into the sky, and then you aim the antenna back at the station. But you can't do that when it's blowing 50, 60, 70 miles an hour, right?
No.
You can't do that at all because it'll just cause the thing to fall over. So we were trying to figure out how we could get our signal back to the transmitter site and then back to the station. And we came up with this brilliant idea. We climbed, we drove up to the top of the Intercoastal Canal Bridge leading into Gulf Shores, and instead of turning and raising the mast, we just turned the truck in the direction of the receiver and then turned on the microwave thing. And you know what? The signal went through. We got color bars. Everything was good. And so Smurf opens up the door. We're on the top of a bridge. The wind is blowing like crazy, and the rain is coming down so hard it just stings your face. You can't even open your eyes. It hurts so bad. And Smurf gets in between the door and the door jamb of the car, between the door and the frame and that little V, and he sort of locks himself in there. And I reach out, and there's onto the front of the car. I'm holding onto the bumper of the car so I don't blow off the side of the bridge into the Intercoastal Canal. And I got a walkie-talkie to my ear and a microphone, and they go on the walkie-talkie, start talking. And so I started talking, and I talked about the things that we are seeing. But, I mean, to pull off that live shot from the top of the bridge when we were literally, the eye was just offshore, was considered like nobody had ever done that before. And it was, how they couldn't figure out how we engineered it. But we did engineer it, and we got it done. And then, but the whole thing, what you got to understand is, I never had the chance to go home and change clothes. I did all of this in my bathing suit and flip-flops for 2 days. Because I was at the beach when it started, and I didn't have any clothes with me, so I had a knit shirt and a bathing suit and flip-flops. And for 2 days, I covered the hurricane just like that.
You should have kept getting refills.
The fact they asked you to keep talking as you're trying to survive is crazy.
Well, they were pretty good. And we were the first reporters to get back down into Gulf Shores and to see some of the damage that was done there. So, I mean, that was just a crazy, crazy, crazy couple of days. I don't think I slept for about 36 hours.
And some of the things you'll do in this business, dude.
I know,
when your adrenaline gets going.
Yeah, you have to do it. You just have to put your head down and do it. And that live shot, when I got back to the station, I said, "Please give that."
Yeah.
And I put it on my reel, and I set my reel out, looking for the next job, as you always do when you're climbing the ladder in television.
Yeah.
And that's the job. That's what that live shot got me the job in Washington, D.C.
There you go, buddy.
So I went from Mobile to Washington, D.C. based on that one live shot. So
but they said, Wilson, you're going to wear a tie here.
Yeah. They said, no bathing suits for you here, Wilson. This is Washington, D.C. You got to dress up.
You sacrifice your life. I like you.
Yeah. Well, anyway. Yeah. The thing about it is, in the news business, they love it when you push the envelope and you get that videotape and you get that shot. But if you get 2 speeding tickets and the insurance company wants to drop you, they won't stand behind you at all.
No. When it comes to money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They say, well, you loved it when I ran hot to that story and got the picture.
Right.
But when I come back with a speeding ticket, you don't love me anymore. That's the way it goes. Anyway, that's my story. What do you guys got?
Well, I've got a little something folks are going to have to look out for after this Milton passes over Florida.
Okay.
And it's coming from an alligator sanctuary founder.
Heard this. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I know this.
All right. I didn't know this about alligators, but apparently his name is Christopher Gillette. He owns Bellowing Acres Sanctuary. He says alligators at the sanctuary are prepped for the storm, and they do this, but they just go in the water. And just like their wild counterparts, he says, through the hurricane, these guys are going to be underwater. He says alligators can hold their breath for 6 hours at a time.
Wow.
So they're saying that, that this storm's going to make a pretty fast trek across Florida and get back into the Atlantic in about a day. So what? They're going to come up for breath maybe every 4 hours and then come up for a breath and go back down. Alligator's going to be okay. But the thing of it is with this surge, some of these wild alligators, you got to think they're going to wind up in people's yards.
They're going to end up in the city. That's right.
And under debris. And he is saying you have got to be careful for that. Not just the alligators, though, but it's the snakes.
Snakes. Oh, I know it. They used to tell us that all the time. Watch out for the snakes.
There are 6 species of snakes in Florida that are considered venomous. Now, we also know about the big snakes that Florida has.
The boa constrictors,
boa constrictors, the pythons, the anacondas. The good thing about an anaconda is it can only hold its breath for 10 minutes. So they might perish in this thing, which would be a good thing for folks. But this guy says definitely, after this thing is over, you got to be very careful when you start picking things up because you don't know what's going to come out from under it. Florida has an estimated 1.25 million alligators.
And a million of them are going to be flying through the air at 100 miles an hour.
No, seriously, it's real.
Yeah,
it's real,
It sounds like a movie.
Yeah.
But it's real.
Absolutely. Because with this surge, man, I mean, it's going to move them.
People don't know this, but down in 30A, they have these things called, I forget what they call them, the special lakes that are fed by streams, but they will occasionally break through down to the Gulf. And there's alligators in there.
Yep.
And sometimes the alligators during the mating season, they'll go from one little lake to the other, but the way they do that is by literally walking up the beach. So they'll come out to the beach, And you'll be out there this happens from time to time. You'll be out there, with your umbrella and you got your towel out and you're getting ready for a nice day of sunshine at the beach, and you look up and here comes about an 8-foot-long alligator just walking up the beach. And it happens, and then people freak out, and the people are screaming and running away.
Yeah.
And they have to call in people to remove the alligators. The thing is, if they're big, I think they kill them.
Yeah.
And if they're small, they relocate them.
Yeah, they relocate them. Yeah.
Makes sense.
But man. And the thing about when you see an alligator like that, what strikes me about them is just how they're just nonchalant. They really don't care about you when they're, thinking about making love, if you will.
Yeah.
But just think about just sitting there on the beach and you see something like that coming.
Yeah. All right, Jeff, you're up, buddy.
All right, I'll be quick.
I'm sorry, we talked too long.
No, you're good. University of Kansas is kind of hitting hot water right now. This morning, you guys know libs at TikTok, right? They post exposés, if you will, on certain schools. Well, this professor videotapes his classrooms, and he was talking about Kamala Harris, and he went a little too far. He said basically he was talking about men who don't vote for Kamala because they're men and they don't want a woman president. Just BS excuses. He said they should all be lined up and shot. And then that got around. He got in trouble for that pretty
I can imagine.
Obviously it got he was like, "Oh, did I say that? Let's cut the tape on that." Unfortunately, the tape was exposed and he got in trouble. University of Kansas then made a statement saying he's on administrative leave instead of being fired for threatening to kill people. But, yeah, that's my story's not as fun, but it's still crazy to think of a teacher, a professor at a university saying people should be shot because they don't vote for who he wants them to vote for.
Jeff, I think it happens a lot more than we know, and unfortunately, in most cases, there isn't any videotape to back it up.
Thank God we're not in college anymore. Thank God we all graduated.
We're going to call it at 51 minutes past the hour.
Hear from the Floridians who say they're going to hunker down to try to survive Hurricane Milton, and there is help for some evacuees right here in Middle Tennessee. You'll hear about that at 6 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Coming up in just a short while, we often hear from the Democrats that voter fraud is it just doesn't happen. Well, I've got several stories that raise questions about that, and I'll get into them coming up after the news with Ken Weaver. 58 minutes past the hour. Let me tell you, if I could, let the team at Restoration Wellness help you achieve your health goals. Restoration Wellness is a leader in weight loss management in Wilson County, and you can call them at 615-470-8124 or visit them at their website, restorationwellnessmedspa.com, to book a consultation today. Now, my friends Carly and Jamie will take good care of you like you're one of their own. You can be part of the more than 1,000 patients who have already seen life-changing results from the weight loss management program there. You can gain your confidence back. You know, weight loss can increase your energy levels, improve your quality of sleep, and enhance your overall health. These are customized treatment plans, and I got to tell you, it's working for me. I did a recalibration. I went back and looked at my records on this. I am down 33 pounds. 33 pounds. It's made a real difference. They will consider your unique needs, your lifestyle, and your goals, just like they did for me. So if your goal is to lose stubborn body fat or improve your overall health, Restoration Wellness has a solution for you. Learn about the newest techniques in weight loss management. Go to restorationwellnessmedspa.com.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Here's Mike Nabusky with our Hurricane Milton update.
Winds have already begun to pick up across the western coast of Florida, where Fort Myers Beach just recorded a 68-mile-per-hour gust. Hurricane Milton is currently a Category 3 storm, with winds topping 120 miles per hour. But ABC News Chief Meteorologist Ginger Z in Fort Myers says, in addition to wind, this storm's going to bring a lot of water, too.
Just in a couple of hours, we should see landfall, certainly before midnight. And I want to just set the scene of where I am here. We've obviously seen surge start to breach, and this is low tide. Right there, the dock covered at the hotel that we're staying at. Wind-wise, we've been in good shape, and that's why we're so far from the center. I mean, Milton passed at closest 120 miles from us, but it's now northwest and about 50 miles west-southwest of Sarasota.
Tornado warnings also currently in effect across much of the eastern part of the state.
Right now, small businesses here in Middle Tennessee are reaching out to help evacuees from Florida. Anyone needing a place to stay or wanting to volunteer can go to downtown-social.com. This is a small business in Smyrna where they say they have room for about 50 people. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. All right, got a crash on 440 westbound. It is blocking the left lane after Hillsborough Pike. And right now in Rutherford County, got a crash with the right lane blocked. Highway Patrol telling us that this is 840 eastbound between Veterans Parkway and I-24. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 8 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, and you're listening to The Drive on this Wednesday, October 9th. So glad that you're with us. Hang in there. We got a lot of stuff to cover here this hour before we hand it over at 7 o'clock to the Mark Levin Show. I've been watching the coverage of the hurricane. Just to bring you up to date, Hurricane Milton is now a Category 3 storm, 120 mile an hour, maybe a 12-foot storm surge in some places on the right side of the storm. Let's see, somewhere between, this is unbelievable. This is 12 to 15 inches of rain. Maybe more, maybe up to 20, 25 inches of rain by some estimates. So we're in for a big old storm down there, and it's too late to evacuate. If you haven't evacuated down there by now, it's too late because it's about 2 hours out of landfall. It's, let's see, 7:09 on the East Coast, and it's supposed to hit somewhere in the 9 o'clock hour. So a couple of hours out before this storm comes ashore as a Category 3. Again, not the wind, but it's the surge and the heavy rains in a very flat area that cause so many concerns. You know, it's a flat state, and in fact, some areas are below sea level. A lot like New Orleans. Does that ring a bell? Katrina and all that? Yeah. So I think we're going to have a really bad storm there, and it's going to cut across the peninsula of Florida, come out on the other side near Orlando, and that's going to be a problem. So there you have it. The latest on that. We'll keep an ear out for anything that happens in this hour while we're still with you. But we'll have more coverage tomorrow, no doubt. I want to turn now to politics if I can, because I have some stories. We often hear in the world of politics, we hear the Democrats claim, voter fraud, it doesn't happen. It's not a thing. But then when you see stories like this, 1 month before Election Day, most of the contested battleground states in the country, in one of the most contested battleground states in the country, Michigan, has a major alleged voter fraud case involving 3 election officials and 4 voters. State Attorney General Dana Nessel, a Democrat, announced Friday that her office had secured felony charges against the 7 individuals in St. Clair Shores, part of Macomb County, and located in suburban Detroit, for allegedly double voting or facilitating it during the state's August primary. Former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris are fiercely competing for Michigan's 15 electoral votes, separated by no more than 1 or 2 percentage points in most polls. The Daily Signal depends on the sport. Nessel said that double voting is rare, but in this case, it was caught. It took a confluence of events and decisions to allow these 4 people to double vote. Nevertheless, the fact that 4 incidents occurred in a municipality of this size raised significant concerns and is simply unheard of. The Attorney General's office charged Frank Prezado, 68, Stacey Kramer, 56, Douglas Kempkins Jr., 44, Geneva O'Day, 62, with 1 count each of voting both absentee and in person. If convicted, they could face a maximum penalty of 5 years in prison. 2 St. Clair Shores assistant clerks, Patricia Guacardio, 73, and Emily McClintock, 42, are each charged with 1 count of falsifying election returns or records, a felony that carries a maximum penalty of 5 years if convicted. 1 count of voting absentee and in person, 1 count of offering to vote more than once, according to the Attorney General's office. Another assistant clerk, 31, faces 2 counts of falsifying election terms. So it wasn't just the people who double voted. They're going after the clerks as well. Now, here's what I would say. They got these folks, and they say, well, this is extremely rare. This never, ever happens. You know what? It's hard to catch, and you then have to be willing to prosecute the cases. Many times they just don't prosecute them. They just don't feel like it's worth the time. But it happens more than I think you know. On that same topic, Senator Hagerty and then Representative Andy Biggs are leading 60 members of Congress in a letter to the Department of Justice demanding answers on the issue of non-citizen voting. They send, this is the second letter they sent. Biggs' office explained in a press release that lawmakers previously sent a letter demanding information from the DOJ on July 12th and have yet to receive a response by their October 2nd letter. They sent the additional correspondence, which was sent within weeks to Election Day. They explained that the DOJ's failure to provide timely answers to our important questions not acceptable. The Arizona Republicans said in a statement at least 10 million illegal aliens have been released into our country through our porous borders during Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's administration. Americans should not have to be concerned that their voices will be drowned out by the voices of illegal aliens when electing officials for public office. Noting that Virginia recently removed more than 6,300 non-voters from its rolls, and that Texas similarly recently identified and removed more than 6,500 non-citizens from its rolls, Biggs says there is sufficient evidence to merit questions from Congress. Clearly, there is a non-negligible amount of voter participation by non-citizens in federal elections, which is not only a serious threat to the integrity of our elections and the democratic process they represent, but also has the potential to reduce American trust and confidence in our election results. The congressman demanded to know the number of illegal immigrants prosecuted for voting illegally under different federal laws and to explain its practices for detecting, investigating, and preventing non-citizen voting in voter registration. This was signed by Haggerty, the senator, Marsha Blackburn, senator, Representative Andy Ogles, Chuck Fleischman, Diana Harshbarger, Tim Burchett, all of Tennessee. This comes as non-citizens, duplicate ballots, and other voter registration issues continue to be discovered ahead of Election Day. We're not claiming this after the election. We're claiming it beforehand. We're sending up the flare to say something is not right. From Texas. Texas officials are asking the federal government for citizenship information on voters after Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton said he obtained a list of approximately, you ready for this number? 454,000 individuals who are registered to vote in the state but haven't had their citizenship verified. Paxton told folks that to the director of the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services in a letter that he is seeking the citizenship and immigration status for voters on the list because he says there is no way to confirm the citizenship status without the federal government's assistance. In Texas, citizenship status is automatically verified when people register to vote using a driver's license or a state-issued ID, as non-citizens cannot vote but can legally hold a license or an ID. Paxton said that those on the list allegedly did not use such identification and that information could not be obtained by the Texas Department of Public Safety, leaving their status unverified. Although I have no doubt the vast majority of the voters on the list are citizens, I am equally certain that Texans have no way of knowing whether or not any of the voters on the list are non-citizens who are ineligible to vote. Folks, if you think it doesn't happen, you're not paying attention. You're simply not paying attention. An election when, these margins are so tight, 1,000 votes, 100 votes, sometimes even, a couple of votes can really make the difference in these battleground states and these battleground counties. This election is going to be decided by very small margins of voters and key precincts. And if you think that there's no cheating going on, then you haven't been listening, because I've been bringing you story after story after story. Yesterday, we told you about undercover video where Hispanic activists were trying to register people who clearly weren't citizens to vote and telling them how to skirt the system and get on and get ready to vote. I'm telling you, it's happening. Something, by the way, is happening out there in this race. I was talking to Pete about it earlier, Pete Hegseth, and he said he had the same feeling that I did, that something's happening. Democrats are very nervous, and you know why? They're looking at the internal polling. The internal polling is quite interesting, and apparently Democrats are looking at polls that they don't show to the public, and they're troubling. Here's sort of an example of what I'm talking about. From FoxNews.com, political analyst Mark Halperin says that private polls reveal that the Harris campaign is in a lot of trouble. In conversations I'm having with Trump people and Democrats with data, they are extremely bullish on Trump's chances in the last 48 hours, extremely bullish. He goes on to say, mentioned in a Wall Street Journal report on internal polling done by Senator Tammy Baldwin's campaign, she's a Democrat in Wisconsin, showing that Harris is down by 3 points. There's no path to the presidency without Wisconsin. And bringing up the numbers from Baldwin's camp, he said, we all said yesterday, Wisconsin and Michigan are looking worse for Harris than before. They think that Baldwin is sounding the alarm bell by revealing the details of her internal polling, saying that, you're underwater. We've heard the same in Michigan, that, the internal polling suggests that she's underwater in Michigan. She's underwater in Wisconsin. And these are Democrat polls. They're very concerned about it. We're here to tell you, he says, that I saw some new private polling today that's very robust private polling, and she's in a lot of trouble. Halperin said that Harris is in danger of losing every swing state except Nevada. I'm not saying she'll lose all 6, but she's in danger. Trump is edging Harris by 2 points in a Pennsylvania survey. This just out from Insider Advantage State poll. Donald Trump appears to be gaining momentum in Pennsylvania with his numbers among independent, senior, and African-American voters increasing or holding steady, says Insider Advantage pollster Matt Towery in his brief analysis. It appears that Harris's support from African-American males is actually deteriorating a bit. This race remains very close, with turnout and enthusiasm remaining important. The Democrats enjoy a slight advantage with regard to the enthusiasm at this point, although the gap has narrowed. Poll comes less than 30 days before Election Day. I've seen another poll trend Donald Trump up. This is a daily poll. Trend for Kamala Harris down over the last 10 or 12 days. So something feels like it's happening. This often happens in an election where toward the end, the people who are undecided decide, and it starts to break one way or the other. I'm getting the sense, and it's still a little early, and I'm not making an absolute promise to you, but I'm getting the sense that the late breakers and the momentum in this particular campaign is moving toward Trump and away from Kamala Harris. I got more to talk about with regard to the elections. Right now, we'll call it 21 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
I'm watching some of these amateur storm chasers on the internet, and they've set up their reporting, and they're doing it live. And these are not like the kind of people you see on the Weather Channel. These are just amateurs, but I mean they're pretty good. They know what they're talking about, and they've got a radar shot up that shows that the eye wall is just about. It couldn't be more than about 20 miles offshore. Any moment now, we will have landfall. Seems to be south of Tampa St. Pete, and let me just give you that's good news, because what that means is it's on the Tampa St. Pete is on the weak side of the storm, and Tampa Bay, literally the winds will be coming and pushing the water out of the bay instead of the surge up into Tampa Bay. At least that's the way it looks right now. But a little further south, it's going to be rough with a storm surge of somewhere, about 10 to 12 feet, and another 15 to 25 inches of rain coming down. Very serious. We'll keep an eye on it and talk more about it in a little bit. I want to finish up the talk about the election because I've got more. I'm excited about some of this stuff. We got this thing with Kamala Harris. She's made this appearance on 60 Minutes, and it has not gone well for her. And I'll have to say, Bill Whitaker has done a great job in doing the interview. He asked really hard questions, and then when she didn't answer, he came back and asked the question again, sometimes a third time, and we couldn't get answers. And one of the best segments that I've seen was him asking, "You got all these great ideas, Kamala. How are you going to pay for it all?" Here we go.
Congress to pass a federal ban on price gouging for food and groceries, but details are yet to be defined. You want to expand the child tax credit.
Yes, I do.
You want to give tax breaks to first-time home buyers.
Yes.
And people starting small businesses.
Correct.
But it is estimated by the Nonpartisan Committee for Responsible Federal Budget that your economic plan would add $3 trillion to the federal deficit over the next decade. How are you going to pay for that?
Okay, so the other economists that have reviewed my plan versus my opponent and determined that my economic plan would strengthen America's economy, his would weaken it. But my plan, Bill, if you don't mind, my plan is about saying that when you invest in small businesses, you invest in the middle class, and you strengthen America's economy. Small businesses are part of the backbone of America's economy.
But pardon me, Madam Vice President, the question was, how are you going to pay for it?
Well, one of the things is I'm going to make sure that the richest among us who can afford it pay their fair share in taxes.
Well, I just have to stop here. I've done this story several times. That's not true. The rich pay the vast majority of taxes in America. I think it's 89. If you are in the top 25% of wage earners in America, you pay 89% of the taxes in this country. She's wrong about that.
It is not right that teachers and nurses and firefighters are paying a higher tax rate than billionaires and the biggest corporations. And I plan on making that fair.
But we're dealing with the real world here.
But the real world includes...
How are you going to get this through Congress?
You know, when you talk quietly with a lot of folks in Congress, they know exactly what I'm talking about because their constituents know exactly what I'm talking about. Their constituents are those firefighters and teachers and nurses. Their constituents are middle-class, hardworking folks.
And Congress has shown no inclination to move in your direction.
I disagree with you. There are plenty of leaders in Congress who understand and know that the Trump tax cuts blew up our federal deficit. None of us, and certainly I cannot afford to be myopic in terms of how I think about strengthening America's economy. Let me tell you something. I am a devout public servant. You know that. I am also a capitalist. And I know the limitations of government.
A capitalist. She's never had to pay a salary. She's never had to make a paycheck. She's never had to actually do a payroll. But she's a capitalist. Never really held an honest job since she left that job at McDonald's. That nobody seems to be able to confirm. Just saying. Just me. 31 past the hour. Time for the news.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Full forecast and traffic coming up in 5 minutes. Milton, currently a Category 3 storm, 120-mile-per-hour winds, expected to make landfall in Florida tonight between 9 and 11. Gloria McNair's in a shelter in Tampa. She says that she brought her grandson there while her daughter is taking care of other family.
She went to her mother-in-law, so I said, well, you know what? I'm going to do what I think is right. I'm going to follow my mind, and I think I should be here.
Yeah, communities in central and even along the east coast of Florida are experiencing heavy rains, reports of tornadoes as many as 10 touchdowns. Right now in Tennessee, any evacuee who is needing a place to stay should check out Downtown Social in Smyrna. They say they can take up to 50 people, and it's free of charge. They can be contacted online at downtown-social.org. In East Tennessee, deer hunters being asked to help out victims of Helene. The Tennessee Wildlife Federation says food banks and shelters are in desperate need of meat they can provide to food trucks ready to cook and serve those families and the servicemen and women helping with recovery efforts. The Federation's Hunters for Hungry says it'll process any harvested deer free of charge so that the meat can be given to the needy. You can find a full list of hunters for the hungry processors at tnwf.org/processors. And in Money News, Michelle Franzen.
It's another new record for the S&P, thanks to technology stocks like Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon, up 1% each. The Dow added 432 points. The Nasdaq gained 109. The S&P rose 41 points. Boeing suffered a slump after the plane maker withdrew a contract offer that would have given striking workers 30% raises over 4 years. The Justice Department is considering asking a federal judge to force Google to sell parts of its business in order to eliminate its online search monopoly. Federal Reserve minutes from the September meeting show officials were debating a quarter or half-point rate cut. They went with half.
That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. .440 westbound right after Hillsborough Pike. We've got a crash blocking the left lane. And then in Rutherford County, Highway Patrol reporting a crash blocking the right lane, 840 eastbound between Veterans Parkway and I-24. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Let's call it 37 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, and we're going to be with you all the way till 7 o'clock. Then we'll do the news, and then Mark Levin will come in and carry on as he does. I'm watching live radar out of Florida. The storm is going into, it's practically on shore now. Within the hour for sure, that the eye of that storm will be hitting the coastline. You got 120 mile an hour winds, and I'm watching these guys who have an internet weather channel, and it's not like real professional slick and all that, except that they're really knowledgeable of what they're talking about, and they've got good local information. Let's say so this is hit or miss because there are 412,000 people watching this stream at the same time, and sometimes it locks up. But let's see if we can catch a little bit of what they're talking about.
So conditions are downhill. Looks like the eye wall is coming inland here. Looks like Sarasota is going to be the center of the eye here. So we're waiting for that. We have the live stream up looking at all the power flashes. Like I said, I swear we've counted over 100 in the past 10 minutes. We're watching this spraying the side of us, sway back and forth. So we're watching that close, and that's the only thing we're worried about right here. But conditions are very extreme.
This is a guy driving down the highway, said they're catching 100 mile an hour winds in Sarasota.
Sounds windy.
And that sounds like that's exactly where it's going to come in.
So that's Chris Hall giving us an update from
and there it goes.
Sarasota,
Yeah,
which
Sarasota.
is also around where Caleb is. Now, things look a little bit more calm where Brad is, but the winds are...
Well, there it goes. It locks up every time.
Also, the storm surge is about to pick up there.
Yeah, they said a moment ago, I was listening in, that the storm surge in the Sarasota area is 11 feet. Now, they said it could go as high as 12 feet, and it may before this is all over. But it's 11 feet above normal. Think about that wall of water, an 11-foot wall of water coming ashore in a very flat area. This is a bad one. And we'll see, what happens as it cuts across the entire peninsula of Florida.
Landfall will be when the exact center of the eye is over land, probably one of the barrier islands here near Vamo, Osprey, Sarasota Beach, in those areas. When that eye makes landfall, there will be seemingly a bunch of birds that are showing up in the radar here, within a couple thousand feet of the surface. They're now in the eye itself and spiraling around, as well as still in that southeastern side of the eye wall where it is mostly rain-free. We can see them on radar and officiate that is actually a biological signature, so more than likely birds that would be out there.
Birds in the eye of the hurricane.
In addition to that,
well, you got to watch this thing because it goes in and out. But fascinating. You can find this link. It's called theyallsquad.org. Okay, so it's really going to be quite the thing as we watch that. And the question is, what's going on with the FEMA? Because we've got this other thing going on, Hurricane Helene, that where people are still struggling. More than a week, well over a week over the arrival of that storm, and they still are reporting that they aren't quite getting it done. FEMA's not showing up in a big way. People feel like they're not getting the support they need. White House is completely irritated. The president took to the microphones this afternoon to rant about all the disinformation, saying that FEMA's not hoarding the stuff. Well, we keep getting these reports from people on the ground that say that is exactly happening. These aren't people who are trying to stir up a political hornet's nest. These are people who are desperate for help, and they say, well, what we see is that FEMA is gathering this stuff up, and then they're trying to control who can go out and distribute it. We've had other reports. This is like, I saw some today, like the fifth time we've seen stories about people who go down there to help, and FEMA says you can't go in there. Well, you're not certified to go in. We have a process here. Red tape. Let's cut up the red tape when there are people with truckloads of goods that are desperately needed in the interior where all of this stuff is happening. Let's cut the red tape and let people go in there and do what the private sector can do far better than the federal government. Listen, FEMA is failing, and here's maybe part of the reason why. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, this is from FoxNews.com, has less than 10% of frontline staff available for deployment amid preparations for the second major hurricane to hit the Southeast this month, according to the agency's daily operation brief. FEMA released a daily briefing on Wednesday, that's today, revealing the agency had only 8%, or about 1,115 FEMA staff members currently available as preparations continue for Hurricane Milton. This number represents a significant drop in availability from a year prior, after an operations briefing from late September 2023 showed the agency had 20% of the same staff available for deployment. They don't have enough people. In May of 2023, the Government Accountability Office, GAO, published a report indicating that as the start of fiscal year 2022, FEMA was understaffed by 35%, with an overall staffing gap of approximately 6,200 employees. They're not up to staff. They don't have enough people to go around. They don't have enough people to get out there and give the kind of support that needs to be given. And you keep hearing these stories about people who say, I'm trying to go in and do something about this. Listen to this. Concerns that private relief distributors are being blocked from entering parts of North Carolina that were impacted have also circulated. Some of the reports that I've received through some of my contacts who are trying to provide assistance, they're being told they need special requirements from FEMA in order to enter these certain areas, said Joe Reich, who is the vice president of My Patriot Supply, an emergency preparedness company. Before Helene made landfall, Congress passed a stopgap mezz spending bill that included money for FEMA's disaster relief fund, but excluded billions in additionally requested supplemental disaster funding. On Friday, President Biden wrote a letter to Congress saying they need more money. Speaker says they've got enough money. They got money that they haven't even spent from past disasters. Billions and billions and billions of dollars. And all they got to do, look, if this administration can, through waving a wand and signing a piece of paper, and the president deems it so, can find millions and billions of dollars to pay off student debt, something Congress never signed off on, then they can find a way to move this money around and get it where they need to get it. They don't need more money. They got plenty of money. What they need is authorization, perhaps, to move it from one account to the other, and that can be done by unanimous consent anytime. Congress doesn't even really have to return for that. Congress can come back at the drop of a hat if needed. Johnson suggested, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson suggested, that FEMA has the funds it needs right now in order to approve additional funding. Congress needs requests from individual states to tabulate how much to provide. So, again, one of the things that I think people lose sight of is federal government, when they come in, do not control the situation. This is something that's not really understood. They are there to assist the state. The state is still the organization in charge. In my estimation, from what I understand about the way this is supposed to work, FEMA doesn't come in and direct anybody. They don't take control of a situation. They are there to supplement whatever the state is doing and to assist the state in their time of need. But they don't have any authority to come in and take over and start bossing people around. It is the local and state authorities that still have control of this situation, or should. So I'm telling you, this is a disaster that we need to get to the bottom of. People need help. People in Helene are in really, really bad shape. We're heading up almost 2 weeks after that storm hit. And you know what? We've got a situation with Milton where they're going to be, also all kinds of needs to be met as this hurricane reveals the damage. We'll know probably by daylight just how bad it is. Speaking of this, I love this story. I think this is fascinating. In the South, they have a way of figuring out just how bad a storm has been. They call it the Waffle House Index. There are 1,900 locations across the Southeast and the Mid-Atlantic region. And they have basically, Waffle Houses have this reputation. I remember this. If you needed food, in a disaster zone, head for the Waffle House. If it's possible for them to be open, they will be open. Each Waffle House, not known, is actually has its own generator. So when the power goes out, they just fire up the generator and keep going. And sometimes all they can do is, make you some bacon and eggs. But they'll keep making it for you. And so it's not known, but after a hurricane, if you want to know how bad things really are, look at the Waffle House Index. They have a website, and they have color-coded maps of its restaurant locations. Now, if it's green, if the little dot is green, it means we're up, we're running, we'll pay, we have the full menu available. That indicates that perhaps there's minimal damage in that surrounding area. The lights are on, and the maple syrup is flowing. Yellow means the restaurant is serving a limited menu. That's a signal that it's pulling power from a generator and might have a low food supply. The area might not have running water or electricity, but there's at least enough gas to fry up bacon for hungry customers. Red is an indication that the store is closed, the Waffle House is closed, and that means that it's unsafe operating conditions in that immediate vicinity. So that's one way that you can sort of find out after just how bad the area is. And I'm going to say one more time, it may be a little too late if you haven't updated your phone of late, but if you have an iPhone and you are in an area where your cell phone doesn't work because the Wi-Fi towers have gone down, cellular towers have gone down, and you don't have Wi-Fi and you don't have cellular, if you have an iPhone 14, 15, or 16, and you've updated it to the latest operating system, you can send to other people who've done the same thing. They have the iOS 18. You can send via satellite text messages. It works. It's the darndest thing. You just go outside, and the phone will tell you what to do. So, there is a way to get communications in and out of an area like that, even when you have no phone's cellular service. 50 minutes now past the hour. Steakhouse like I am, you know what? You can have some of those same flavors at home. Or how about at your next tailgating event? You're going tailgating? Why not take some Fleeman's along? Just go to your local grocery store aisle, places like Walmart and Kroger's, and look for Johnny Fleeman's very own brand. Johnny Fleeman's Marinade proprietary blend will give your steaks, chicken, or chops a flavor that will hit a home run with friends and family. It's low in sodium, about a third of other brands. You don't have to worry about over-marinating. And let me talk for a moment about his honey mustard salad dressing. You use it as a salad dressing or a dipping sauce for your favorite chicken fingers, fresh-cut vegetables, or chips, a recipe used in his restaurant for over 35 years. If your favorite grocer isn't stocking Johnny Fleeman products, ask them to do so. For more information, go to johnnyfleeman.com. And it goes without saying, for those times when you want someone else to do the cooking, they'll always be glad to see you at your nearest Legend Steakhouse for lunch or for dinner.